Chapter 1053, Able to break any unyielding thing. Chapter 1053, Able to break any unyielding thing. After Shi Yang's soul returned to his body, he stood up. Then, he saw Zhuoshi, who looked terribly exhausted. Zhuoshi was disheveled. She had dust all over her body and even her face. However, her big eyes were still fixated on him. She looked startled. "How long have you not rested for? Why do you look even more tired than I do?" Shi Yang was surprised. "Since you'd begun cultivating, I haven't rested." Zhuoshi smiled begrudgingly. She exhaled in relief. "It's good that you're all right. I can ease my mind now and I can start to recover." Looking at her, Shi Yang felt warm. He muttered, "Silly girl, it's safe here. Why were you so tense? The meteors are running at breakneck speed here. No battleships dare to enter, so there would have been no one else in this area. But when you were cultivating, your soul had left your body. If someone came, he could have killed you quickly," Zhuoshi said seriously. "You should rest well. I'm going out to handle something." Shi Yang was touched. He didn't know long this girl had been protecting him. She was afraid that something unexpected would happen to him while he was cultivating. "I'm going with you." Zhuoshi opened her big eyes, urging her energy to pretend that she was in high spirits. "I'm all right. Stay here." Shi Yang glared at her, talking persistently. "You can't help me even if you go with me. You should recover your energy first." Usually, High Realm warriors didn't need to sleep to recover. However, they still needed meditation to adjust their conditions. Zhuoshi's nerves had been tense for a long time without a break. It affected her realm and energy. Shi Yang knew how harmful it was to stay focused for a long time. He wouldn't let her consume her mind energy furthermore. Okay then, Zhuoshi was always obedient. She wasn't stubborn at all. She took out the divine crystals and sat down in front of Shi Yang to recover her power. Shi Yang eased his mind. He told her, "You should be more cautious." He immediately flew away from the core of the meteor, heading to the most spectacular area of Shadow Ghostly Prison. Looking at the space slits there, he released wisps of soul consciousness and sent them to those space slits. While staying in the fountainhead of power Upanishads, Shi Yang had talked thoroughly to that beautiful woman and her disciple. He had some information about their identities. The beautiful woman was called Yushan, an expert at second sky of incipient god realm. The young girl's name was Xian Fei. She was at first sky of ethereal god realm. The two of them came from Fiery Rain Star area. They seemed to belong to a mighty force. The Fiery Rain Star area was like Agate Star area. It was also a high-level star area. This star area was one of the rare star areas that the God Clan hadn't touched. It had fought against the God Clan year-round. Of course, the forces there didn't have any good impression of the God Clan. The reason why the God Clan didn't bring the departed spirit jellyfish to Fiery Rainstar area was that the experts in Fiery Rainstar area cultivated fire power Upanishad, the nemesis to the jellyfish. And many of them had reached profound levels. As the God Clan knew that the departed spirit jellyfish couldn't do anything to Fiery Rainstar area, they didn't plot anything with it. If Fiery Rainstar area didn't have the experts who had fused with the flaming origin at incipient god realm like Yushan, perhaps it would have been treated like Agate Star area. Fiery Rainstar area and Agate Star area weren't far from each other. In the early epoch, the two star areas used to have a good relationship with clear space passages. However, later on, the two star areas turned their back against each other. Wars burst out. Within the short period, both sides had borne significant loss. No one could take the upper hand. They were equally strong. To prevent the further useless war, the two had agreed to block the space passage. For tens of thousands of years, the two star areas hadn't had any relationship. During that time, the God Clan had been already infamous. However, they hadn't had the power to invade Agate Star area and Fiery Rainstar area. And the two star areas didn't have the same enemy to join hands and resist. After tens of thousands of years, Fiery Rainstar area had officially engaged in the war against the God Clan. And the Ascot family had laid their eyes on Agate Star area. And the two star areas now had the same enemy. If the space passage was torn, They didn't have any reason to fight anymore. Now, they had a big opportunity to unite as one force. Thus, when Yushan knew the situation of Agate Star area, she frankly agreed to come over and help Shiyang deal with the departed spirit jellyfish. She could also receive something good too. According to Yushan, the space passage connecting Agate Star area and Fiery Rain Star area had fire raindrops, which was the unique feature of Fiery Rain Star area. The border and the area near the edge of Fiery Rain Star area had the same fire raindrops. That was why this area was called Fiery Rain Star area. The fiery rain was formed after one of the ancient continents of Fiery Rain Star area got shattered. It stored some magical power, which created a natural border that blocked Fiery Rain Star area. Any space passage connected the Fiery Rain Star area to the other star area had the same fire raindrops. As long as Shiyang could find the aura of that kind of unique raindrop in Shadow Ghostly Prison, he could confirm that space passage leads to Fiery Rain Star area. Each flow of his soul consciousness moved in and out inside the space splits in front of him as it searched. As time passed, Shiyang's soul consciousness elongated, projecting what it had seen into his mind. Shiyang could see the space slit clearly. Many space passages connected this star area to the other areas were blocked. They seemed to be sealed by an invisible wall. At the same time, Shiyang could also see some clear space passages. However, those space passages had the terrifying space energy of the disorderly chaotic space basin. If he made a wrong step, he would be mashed. A familiar space slit appeared in his head, which made him astounded. Shiyang felt the aura of Grace Mainland in that space passage. His co-soul even shivered as he had a subtle feeling of seeing the homeland. He was a little surprised as he recognized that direction should lead to the Ice and Fire secret domain in Grace Mainland. The space energy fluctuated vehemently and disorderly. In that space, different energies madly twisted and twirled like tornadoes that could cut off everything. Even in his current realm, Shiyang knew that it was really tough to get through that space passage. How did they get through it to come here that year? He couldn't help but remember Xia Xinyang. He sighed, knowing that Xia Xinyang was lucky and had spent a lot of effort to enter Shadow Ghostly. She earned trust from the hegemon of the Fighting League. He knew she had to endure hardship to have what she had today. While he had many thoughts in his mind, his eyes brightened as he spotted a place with scorching flames. Shiyang was shaken. He immediately retrieved the other wisps of soul consciousness he had sent away. Instantaneously, he turned into a bunch of electric lights, gliding through the rigid, elongating space passage. Shiyang saw the fiery raindrops Yushan had told him. Those raindrops filled the entire place like someone was burning the sky. Countless fiery raindrops sparked and scattered beautifully, giving the space passage a magnificent look. However, those fire raindrops were blocked by a magical, invisible barrier. Shiyang's soul consciousness could sense the heat but couldn't touch it. After his god body had come to that invisible barrier, he sensed for a while before he could confirm that it was the barrier of Fiery Rain Star area, which could be set up by the experts of Agate Star area and Fiery Rain Star area. It was half man-made and half natural, which made it tough and flexible. People couldn't break it easily. Although he had cultivated space power Upanishad, it wasn't easy to break this space barrier. Releasing wisps of soul consciousness, Shiyang urged his power. 10 shining space blades came from his 10 fingers, trying to cut that barrier. Scrat, scrat, scrat. The sharp blades made of his space power Upanishad hit hard on the barrier, trying to cut it. However, only the explosion echoed. 10 beautiful slashes of light sparked. However, the barrier stood still without a little scratch. Since Yushan was at second sky of incipient god realm, he just needed to make a small slit to help her get through. And only incipient god realm experts could move through a half-blocked space passage. Yushan didn't ask him to do a big thing. He just needed to tear a small slit. However, even if he had used his best powers to hit it, the space blades he had released looked weaker than this barrier. He couldn't make even a tiny cut. Shiyang grimaced. He was worried. He frowned and continued to adjust his power. He had even urged the immortal demon blood to enter third sky of rampage. He had tried everything he could, but he still couldn't break the barrier. He suddenly recognized that although he had reached first sky of ethereal god realm and had an understanding of space power Upanishad, he was still far behind the experts who had set up this space barrier using natural powers. He couldn't even make a small tear. He suddenly knew that the difference between realms wasn't something he could make up with an innate endowment. Darkening his face, Shi Yang didn't hurry to attack more. He gathered himself, trying to think. Talking about the sharpest power in this world, space power could be on the top list. However, his space blades couldn't break it. Which power did he have that could do that? Did he have anything sharper than space energy? He lingered on this thought. After a long time, his eyes brightened. His thoughts flickered as he hauled out the blood broadsword. His fingers clasped around the handle of the sword, sending his energy, immortal demon blood, god power, and negative energy into the sword. The blood eyes in the sword opened strangely and evilly. A brutal aura shot up into the air from the tip of the sword, which looked like a bloody beam of hundreds of meters. Suddenly, the energy of his entire body gushed into the blood sword. At this moment, the blood sword had become a top evil divine weapon that could break any unyielding thing. The blood beam that gathered all the terrifying energies tore the sky, slashing the space barrier. Swish! The barrier that had troubled him for a long time was pierced through, creating a slit as big as an arm. The bloody beam continued to thrust further, entering the sea of fiery raindrops before vanishing. Shi Yang's energy was used. He was so exhausted as he looked blankly at the hole. Then, he urged his soul energy to contact Yushan. "I'm coming right now," Yushan replied. She seemed too surprised, as if she didn't think that Shi Yang could make it through that fast. Chapter 1054, The Ones Who Cross the Border. Chapter 1054, The Ones Who Cross the Border. Lifestar number 9 of Potion and Tool Pavilion, Shadow Ghostly Prison. Bettina was grave as she tried to contact Jia Duo and Fu Wei. However, she hadn't received any response. Still no information. Consecrator Timlin frowned. "It has almost been 1 year. Where have they gone? Why we can't have any information from them? The Elder Conference is scheduled. Jia Duo and Fu Wei are the 2 elders. They should understand how important the conference is. Especially when Fu Wei is keeping the cannon. What the heck are they doing?" The Elder Conference of Potion and Tool Pavilion was responsible for appointing the new pavilion master. At this moment, it was as hot as boiling oil. Being the elders, Jia Duo and Fu Wei were the 2 important participants. If they didn't show up at the conference, it meant they had given up their rights. Third Elder Bettina had planned this for years. Rumors said that they kept the cannon too. They were the party that had the most prominent candidate for the pavilion master position. At this moment, Jia Duo and Fu Wei were missing. To Bettina's party, it was a destructive event. "I don't know what has happened." Bettina grimaced. "If they haven't met anything unexpected, I think they would have answered. I think they are in big trouble." Bettina knew what Jia Duo and Fu Wei were doing and she approved it. If Jia Duo and Fu Wei could prove that the God Clan was about to invade them and the Great Elder had joined hands with the alien Dark Shadow Clan, the participants in the coming Elder Conference would handle Zhuo Lu directly. At that time, not only would he not get the pavilion master position, he could also be expelled or even executed. Bettina knew what Jia Duo and Fu Wei wanted to do, and it was related to the election of the new pavilion master. She tacitly agreed. She had never thought that at the critical moment, Jia Duo and Fu Wei would suddenly disappear and leave no clue. Bettina was worried and gloomy because she knew that Jia Duo and Fu Wei were now in a deadly situation. "We don't have much time left," Timlin sighed. "According to you, your party could reach the peak of glory this time. You've found the cannon, anyway. But now Fu Wei and Jia Duo are missing. You guys don't have any evidence to show that you have the cannon. It's hard to verify what you've said about the Great Elder. I'm afraid this time you will fail too. It's definitely because of Zhuo Lu." Bettina gritted her teeth. "He keeps the satellite eye. He must have some insiders in Shadow Ghostly Prison. He must have sealed a secret agreement with the Dark Shadow Clan. He's confining Jia Duo and Fu Wei somewhere. Even if it's true, we don't have any solution." Timlin looked reluctant. Wait until the dust settles and Great Elder takes the master position. He can brush away everything. At that time, even if Fu Wei and Jia Duo come back with the cannon, they can't shake his position in the pavilion. Bettina felt so heavy-hearted. On a floating life star by the peripheral area of Shadow Ghostly Prison sat the Great Elder Zhuolu with a calm face inside a massive potion cauldron. He was gathering energy as if he was refining medicines. He didn't look anxious as the Elder Conference was near. He looked strangely placid. Hammer, chief of the Ghostmark clan, came here alone. He was sitting silently by the cauldron as if he was waiting for something. After a while, Zhuolu opened his eyes. The cauldron diffused the aroma that could enter people's internal organs. He smiled and said, "I'm lucky this time. The pellets I've refined are all turning out good. Hammer, you can take some. They can strengthen your soul consciousness. You've done well this time." Hammer smiled. "It's you who had arranged everything with the Dark Shadow clan." Half a year ago, clansmen of the Ghostmark clan had found the commotion of the Demon clan, Monster clan, Fighting League, Jia Duo, and Fu Wei through their shortcuts. Hammer immediately contacted Zhuolu, who then contacted the chief of Dark Shadow clan. They had planned, and the chief of the Dark Shadow clan had done something discreetly. They made the strong league that had frightened the forces in Shadow Ghostly Prison disappear oddly. Hammer didn't actually know what had happened. He just knew that those people would disappear forever. He knew that the clansmen of the Dark Shadow clan had done that. He was so frightened because he couldn't imagine what kind of force they had that allowed them to destroy the allied army of the Monster clan, Demon clan, Fighting League, and Jia Duo. Hammer had become warier of the Dark Shadow clan. "Don't worry. They will never be a threat to us anymore. Chief of the Dark Shadow clan has personally guaranteed me that they will never show up again. Without this unknown factor, I will finish this Elder Conference," said Zhuolu with confidence. Hammer started to act servilely. Under the ICC hovered a massive light cage, which was made of pure energy. It illuminated the ICC water, releasing waves of light. Different colored water currents meandered around the light cage. When the currents touched the light cage, it sizzled as if its energy was eroded. Inside the light cage were many battleships anchored in this unreal space. The flashing light reflected on people's restless faces. Those were the battleships of the Monster clan, Demon clan, Fighting League, and Potion and Tool Pavilion. Around 1,000 battleships were kept here for a long time. Blood Devil, Bath, Gute, and Feng Yang, the 4 incipient God Realm experts, looked tired as they had to spend a lot of energy. Feng Yang couldn't hold it anymore. Her face paled and didn't have a tinge of color. It was the sign of using a lot of energy. Around 1,000 battleships circled in this area. Warriors of the 4 forces hid inside the battleships and gathered energy. They all looked gloomy. "I don't know what that F*King trap is. So evil." Bath was so agitated. "Our combined power couldn't kill it. That thing has many souls. When we kill one, it generates another. I have never seen anything close to an immortal creature like this. It's not a creature that Agate Star area should have. It has toxins all over its body. And those toxins affect both the god body and the soul altar. Honestly, if I didn't see with my own eyes, I would never have believed that something like that still existed in this world." Gut also forced a smile. "We can't hold on to it for a long time. We must find a solution." Blood Devil frowned deeply. "The deadly toxins of that thing have been eroding our defensive barrier. It wears out our energy. Among the 4 of us, Feng Yang can't help it anymore. Our recovery speed couldn't make up for the consumed speed. If we don't have any solution, I think we have to bury our bodies here. Recently, we've tried all means and solutions. Nothing works." Jia Duo of Potion and Tool Pavilion had a gloomy complexion. "That incipient God Realm expert who has space power Upanishad has destroyed the space structure around us. I can't tear a space slit. Otherwise, we would have had a chance to get out of here." Fortunately, Shi Yang wasn't with us. Xia Xinyang was still calm. Since she had experienced the same hopeless situation, she was trained to be as firm as a stone. Perhaps he had found this strange situation and returned to Shadow Ghostly Prison to tell the others. We may have a chance to survive. He didn't leave this area. Blood Devil erased her hope, his face awkward. Although this area is strange, I can still feel him. He's lingering around here. He has never left. Ah! Fu Wei was astounded. He should leave. With his power, he can't help us. If he has returned to Shadow Ghostly Prison to find the Hegemon of Fighting League or the Elders of Potion and Tool Pavilion, perhaps we could have had a chance to be rescued. But now. People exchanged forced smiles. Nobody thought that Shi Yang lingering here was a wise move. Even the 4 incipient God Realm experts Blood Devil, Bath, Gut, and Feng Yang couldn't escape with their powers. Staying here, what Shi Yang could do? He's not foolish. He knows what happened. I think he has a solution. Blood Devil squinted and spoke slowly. We should draw upon all useful opinions. Just try all the mysterious or magical solutions you can. Anything. Just tell us and we will try to see if we can get out of here. Hearing him, the others put on gloomy, contemplating faces, sighing unceasingly. They were the group of outstanding warriors who could swagger in this world, but now they were confined in this area without a possible solution. This gave them an unavoidable sorrow. Inside the magical space passage, Shi Yang looked at the tear on the barrier, retrieving the blood sword. He then adjusted his condition, not to show the other his helter-skelter situation. One slash of the sharp sword had taken 1/3 of his energy to open a small slit on the space barrier. However, he didn't think that it was a failure. Now, he had one more visual experience of this incredibly sharp sword. Tens of thousands of years ago, experts of Agate Star Area and Fiery Rain Star Area had built the space barrier based on the natural features of this area to cut off the connection between 2 big star areas. As Shi Yang had only the ethereal God Realm cultivation base, if he didn't have that divine sword and struck the barrier with all of his energy, it was just like scratching the wrong spot. It wasn't going to work. However, the blood sword could make a tear in that barrier. Shi Yang wondered how sharp the sword should be to do that. The mighty original incipient grade divine weapon was really extraordinary. It could break even the hardest defense. Shi Yang checked his appearance. His eyes brightened up as his soul got something. He hadn't waited for a long time. 2 lights, one blue and one scarlet, were moving like shooting flames, drawing beautiful curves through the fiery raindrops towards Shi Yang. Swoosh, swoosh. The 2 lights swayed through the slit. The lights transformed, turning into 2 beautiful feminine figures. Yushan wore a long blue dress. She looked elegant and graceful like a fresh, blooming flower. Xian Fei wore tight, orange-red clothes. She looked mischievous despite her amazing curves. Her eyes rolled as if she couldn't stand still for a moment. A beautiful woman and a pretty girl curiously gazed at him as soon as they appeared. How did you poke through that barrier? With your realm and cultivation base, I thought it would be really strenuous. You did it strangely fast. It's beyond my estimation. Yu San's voice was soft as she had a faint smile on the corner of her mouth. She was like the sister from next door who often made people felt warm and relaxed. My fortune is quite good. Shi Yang was hurried, so he didn't want to explain in detail. Shall we go now? Sure, Yu Shan smiled calmly. Then we will go now. Chapter 1055, Refine the Sea. Chapter 1055, Refine the Sea. Shi Yang guided Yu Shan and Xian Fei back to the icy sea. They hovered above the sea where poisonous smokes fumed. Shi Yang had come back here after several months and this time, he felt much different. The first time he visited this area, his hands were tied. He had had no solution facing this sea. His soul consciousness couldn't intrude the sea and he was so fearful for the departed spirit jellyfish hiding under the chilling sea. But it was different today as he had brought a second sky of incipient God Realm expert who had the heaven flame of the origin. This time, he was more certain. Yu Shan flew above the sea, her bold brows knitting. She sensed for a while and then smiled. You're correct. It's the departed spirit jellyfish. I can't believe I can meet this world-wild infamous, legendary creature once in my life. Precursor, please take action. Shi Yang solemnly asked. Of course. I've crossed the border to get here for the departed spirit jellyfish. I won't let it go. Yu Shan smiled gently. However, she didn't take action immediately and just looked at him curiously. Anyway, we need to make it clear first. If I refine the departed spirit jellyfish, I will take everything from it. Any objection? No. Shi Yang looked earnest. How about those people down there? Yu Shan smiled again. No, either. Shi Yang nodded again. You can decide for them. Yu Shan was surprised. As she had second sky of incipient god realm with the heaven flame, the seabed where Shi Yang couldn't search wasn't a problem for her. At the moment she'd arrived, she had released her soul consciousness to sense. She knew how strong the characters undersea were. For incipient god realm experts, 3 of them have reached second sky of incipient god realm. In their fiery rainstar area, the existences at such level were all top characters. Since Yu Shan had cultivated the power Upanishad that was the nemesis of the departed spirit jellyfish, she was confident that could refine it. However, once the people confined down there could get out and they had some malicious thoughts towards her when she was refining the departed spirit jellyfish, she wouldn't be able to bear such attacks. Although her power Upanishad could subdue the departed spirit jellyfish, she couldn't oppress those 4 incipient god realm experts. If they tricked her when she had consumed a lot of her energy to refine the jellyfish, she would be restrained here too. She had her worries. She wasn't sure that Shi Yang's position and status were enough to talk those people down there into this agreement. Thus, she was hesitant. I can guarantee that as long as you can solve the departed spirit jellyfish, they wouldn't have any unfriendly commotion. Shi Yang was dumb. He knew what she was worried about and he tried to show his commitment. I can make a pledge. Yu Shan waved her hand and smiled. I believe in you. Our fiery rainstar area and your agate star area are also plotted against by the god clan. I think we will have more chances to cooperate later. I know those people down there understand the general picture well. She immediately urged her soul altar to use her power Upanishad. Shortly after, the clusters of dim blue flame flew out of her sleeves unceasingly. They looked like columns of clouds that slowly approached the icy sea. The terrifying scorching flame filled the area. The entire space passage felt like it was burning. The heat was increasing unlimitedly. Shi Yang felt as if he was standing in melting lava, which hurt his god body. He was frightened as he finally knew how intimidating the incipient god realm expert who had the heaven flame could be. Those dim blue flames seemed to be able to melt the entire space passage. It was so powerful, indeed. The dim blue flames gathered, creating a flaming blue sea that covered the icy sea. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. All of a sudden, the colored smokes vehemently fumed from the sea. The cold sea was boiled and evaporated. The cold air and the high heat confronted. Energies engaged and created thicker mist. Be careful of those smokes. They are all poisonous. Yu Shan reminded. Xian Fei's lively eyes moved, her power Upanishad was urged. A refined orange-red flame shrouded her graceful body like a feather blanket. The scorching aura expanded, covering her in an orange-red halo. As her face was illuminated by the red flame, she looked delightful. Shi Yang frowned. His thought flickered and a scarlet flame gathered, making a light curtain shield his god body from the poisonous smokes. The dim blue flame gushed out unlimitedly from Yu Shan's sleeves. It looked as if it could connect the earth and heaven. It surged and wanted to burn the whole sky and vaporize the earth. This kind of evil heat was much beyond Shi Yang's imagination. She looked calm, moving 2 hands and making magical hand seals. Her god body and flames blended around her, making the blue flame sea seethe violently. The icy sea was evaporated faster. The seawater surged torrentially. As Shi Yang was watching, it dried up at a speed naked eyes could observe. Deep inside the space passage on a massive shooting star were many butterfly battleships of the Dark Shadow clan anchored. The Dark Shadow clansmen were moving in and out of those battleships. Brilliant outer space streamers shot fast like electric arrows moving around this meteor. More and more war chariots were running to and fro on the meteor. Several thousand Dark Shadow clansmen were working on expanding something. They all looked busy. The ancient palace of the Dark Shadow clan was situated on the biggest meteor. Kelda, a leader of the Dark Shadow clan, was talking to Chief Bello in the meeting hall. Many commanders of the clan were listening to them. The space passage is clear now. Our critical task now is to clean the dregs inside the passage. It would facilitate the massive battleships of the Ascot family. We must focus on this. Chief Bello advised, don't enter Shadow Ghostly Prison from now on if you don't have any duty there. It's complicated now. We should wait until Great Elder of Potion and Tool Pavilion successfully takes the throne of the Pavilion Master. He will make the entire Agate Star area chaotic. After that, we will lead the Ascot family in to clear the Fighting League first. Kelda nodded. The Fighting League has been troubling us for years. Feng Han isn't a wise leader. He has always been stubborn. It's time for his death now. Feng Han is a big character, Bello frowned. I've contacted him personally. I expected that we could merge the Fighting League with us without fighting with them. But he denied me. I'd offered him big benefits. Anyway, he didn't want to follow us. This man is placid. Without the Ascot family, our Dark Shadow clan couldn't chew the Fighting League off. Chief, you're just modest. Haven't you solved the 3 incipient God Realm experts of the Monster Clan and Demon Clan? Kelda appraised. It's the merit of the departed spirit jellyfish. Bello didn't want to earn the merit. Without that departed spirit jellyfish, even if we used all of our power, it would have been very strenuous to deal with that force. I was lucky with my handy opportunity, so I've arranged that thing at the area they had to pass through then. I cut their space and moved them under the sea of the departed spirit jellyfish. If they have prepared, I wouldn't have succeeded that simply. They have 4 incipient God Realm experts, anyway. This force is really powerful. They have troubled Zwalu of Potion and Tool Pavilion a lot. Their satellite eye is everywhere, indeed. It's true. Without their information, we couldn't finish many tasks. Kelda could help but agree. Bello and Kelda then discussed many details of the Ascot family's invasion, so as their subordinates could understand thoroughly. While talking, Bello's face changed. He jolted up from his seat and shouted, "Something is wrong." Kelda was surprised. "Chief, what's wrong?" "The space restriction I've set up at that area loosened. I can feel a scorching aura." Bello was worried. "We got the departed spirit jellyfish from the Ascot family. If something happens to it, we can't have any reason to explain to them. It's impossible." Kelda was scared. From Zwalu of the Potion and Tool Pavilion, we've confirmed that Agate Star area doesn't have any incipient God Realm expert who had the Flame of the Origin before we took the departed spirit jellyfish here. When did we make a mistake? Zwalu has set us up. Not true. Bello took a deep breath. It's crucial now. We should go there to check the situation. If it's so, we must do our best to stop them. Okay. Dash. Under the icy water, brutal Dragon Bath was exhausted and hot-tempered as he was standing in the center of the massive energy barrier. He was foul-mouthed as he couldn't calm himself to swallow this anger. They had tried many means and solutions, even something magical or evil. However, they still had no solution to deal with the departed spirit jellyfish. This made the experts become hot-tempered. They got angry easily, which kept their subordinates away from them. They didn't dare to come close to their masters to prevent getting hit from the sparks. Feng Yang couldn't stand it for a long time. She had to use the pellets from Potion and Tool Pavilion and Divine Crystals to restore. In the coming time, she couldn't do anything to help them. Bath and GUT had to pour energy into the light curtain from time to time. They were on the edge of collapsing already. Blood Devil had to use his demon blood already. The situation was very tense and they had never experienced this before. All of them knew that if there wasn't an external force to help them, they would never escape this confinement. At the moment Bath and GUT were complaining noisily, Blood Devil was surprised. He lifted his head to look at the dark sea water and said, "Here he comes again." "Shiyang." Bath snorted. "What if he comes? We can't break it." "Do you think he can?" "He can't do anything even if he comes here. If you still can connect to him, you should tell him to stay away from this area," said GUT begrudgingly. No, it's different this time. Blood Devil closed his eyes to sense. Suddenly, a dazzling light radiated from his eyes. You guys sense it. The icy water above our head is evaporating. People were shaken. They released their soul consciousness to see. They jolted. All looked cheered up and they could see the thrill in each other's eyes. They all felt the chilling water above their head gradually disappear. They could even feel a beam of chaotic energy intruding. Holy *T. That boy can help us get out of here. I'm convinced in heart and by word. Barth roared with his red eyes. Chapter 1056, See the Sunlight Again. Chapter 1056, See the Sunlight Again. The blue flame covered the entire icy sea and evaporated it. The poisonous smokes diffused, filling the space passage. However, they didn't flow into Agate Star area. Yushan was calm as she floated above the sea while the quiet blue flame on her body gushing out unceasingly. It congregated above the chilling sea, bumping energy continually. Shi Yang and Xian Fei hovered silently by her. They stooped to observe the sea underneath. They all had the flames shrouding their bodies to avoid the toxic smokes. The heaven flame of the origin was so scorching it could evaporate the smokes. When the smokes approached the flaming barrier around their bodies, they exploded and vanished. Hello. As Xian Fei felt bored, she called Shi Yang loudly. While concentrating on the sea underneath, Shi Yang was startled. His body trembled as he gave her a forced smile. Miss, why did you call me? Seeing the icy sea dry up and send steam into the air, Shi Yang calmed down. His tense nerves were finally relaxed. Now, he had the mood to talk to that outer spacecrafty girl. However, he wasn't so friendly. Although he respected this talkative lady, he couldn't get close to her. You bastard, how could you gather all the heaven flames of the origin of an ancient continent? Did you kill that many people? Xian Fei snorted and cocked her head to look at him. Obviously, you aren't a good guy. Shi Yang was surprised. Why am I not a good guy? You've killed a lot of people to rob the heaven flames. Of course, you're not a good guy. Xian Fei had a disdainful look on her face. I hate cunning and evil people like you the most. There are many people like you in the fountainhead of power Upanishad. They want to enjoy but not labor. I didn't kill anyone in the fountainhead of power Upanishad to get my heaven flames of the origin. Shi Yang explained begrudgingly. I can say that I was lucky. Why don't you use the fire power Upanishad as your main power? Do you know what we think about your situation? You've wasted the fruits from God. Xian Fei was angry. We've spent a lot of effort, but we couldn't gather all the heaven flames of an ancient continent. You have such fortune, but you've made them your co-soul. I really hate people like you. Shi Yang didn't know whether he should cry or smile. He didn't want to mind her anymore. When we were in the area of fire's power Upanishads, why weren't you interested in me? Xian Fei was enthusiastic and she had the guts to ask him such a thing. Seeing him not want to continue talking, she yelled louder, Am I not pretty? I've met many guys like Spot in the fountainhead of power Upanishad. They all had a passion of me. Hey, do you have any problem? Shi Yang darkened his face but didn't answer. You like men? Shi Yang kept silent, his face more grimaced. Oh, right. No wonder. It means I have no problem with my charisma. It's you who has a problem. Xian Fei looked as if she could confirm something. She thrust her chest out and lifted her chin arrogantly. In our fiery rainstar area, many men feel proud when they talk to me. Sigh. I know it. Your sexual orientation isn't normal. All right, I can ease my mind now, sighed Xian Fei. Although Shi Yang grimaced, he wasn't that bored to react to her. He thought, if I didn't ask for your teacher's favor, Daddy would show you how dangerous I am. Sizzle. 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 Suddenly, more toxic smokes fumed out from the icy sea. The smokes were so thick with different gross smells shooting up into the sky. Yushan was shaken. Here it comes. Shi Yang and Xian Fei immediately focused on the surface of the sea underneath, longing to see something. The departed spirit jellyfish was the most mysterious and ancient creature in the vast universe. No one knew how it was born. They just knew that it ate the most poisonous things to grow. It liked to eat toxic grass and pellets the most. This thing was a rare monster, indeed. This kind of creature was extremely rare. It was a descendant of the oldest bloodline with the power of earth and heaven. They all wanted to see how the departed spirit jellyfish looked. As the seawater evaporated, the departed spirit jellyfish shelter was destroyed. It couldn't be patient deep under the sea anymore. It slowly raised to the sea surface. It looked like a big mass of grey seaweed floating and moving upward in the sea. The departed spirit jellyfish did look like a real jellyfish in the sea that Shuyang knew. It had an umbrella-shaped bell, which was squishy and viscous without a skeleton. It looked like a mountain of flesh in the sea with many nauseating pimples, which had some small holes where fumed the colored toxic smokes. Its body could pulsate magically. This creature didn't have a head or limbs. It was like a malignant tumor floating on the sea. Taking a look at it, people would lose their appetite immediately. Its soul was scattered in each of those meat lumps. Each soul was dependent, but it was connected to each other. This creature seemed to be a multi-soul living being, which was beyond Shuyang's cognition. Ew! It's too gross. Xian Fei wiped her mouth as if she wanted to puke. I have never seen anything so ugly. Master, can you burn it faster? I can feel my scalp numb seeing it. Yu Shan also grimaced. Evidently, it was also the first time she saw the departed spirit jellyfish. Her bold brows furrowed as she said, "Really ugly, indeed. I've never thought that this creature could be such a freak. It doesn't have a head or limbs and its soul scatters. Tens of thousands of meat lumps in its body can produce different toxic smokes. We're lucky that I've cultivated its nemesis power. Otherwise, I wouldn't have gathered the guts to fight with it. Finish it quickly, please." Xian Fei flung her arms as she turned away because she didn't want to look at the jellyfish anymore. Shuyang was placid. He assessed the floating departed spirit jellyfish seriously. He observed, not wanting to miss any little detail. His endurance was much stronger than Yu Shan's and Xian Fei's. He had accepted the king of demonic insects, something much uglier than this. He had seen many disgusting things. He got used to it. Thus, nasty things couldn't affect his mind. Shuyang was curious, so he tried to sense the departed spirit jellyfish soul. It was true that the jellyfish had many souls. Each of them was hiding inside the ugly meat lump. Although those souls looked dependent, they could connect and reflect each other, creating a whole entity. It was the first time Shuyang saw such a unique creature. He got more curious as he observed it. PFFF. 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 All of a sudden, the gross lumps of the departed spirit jellyfish gushed out colored venom, which was shot out violently like erupting volcanoes. The columns of venom were even bigger than human arms, shooting up into the air. There were thousands of them that darted towards Shuyang's team like water arrows. Yu Shan was frightened. She hurried to urge her power and create a blue flame wall. She screamed at Shuyang, "Take little Fei away." Since Xian Fei didn't want to look at the departed spirit jellyfish, she had turned her back to it. Yu Shan understood her disciple well. She knew that the girl couldn't do anything to those ugly things. She could only ask Shuyang to help her. Okay. Shuyang agreed immediately. He reached with his arm and wrapped around Xian Fei's delicate waist. In just a blink of an eye, he urged his energy to move away from Yu Shan. Xian Fei's waist was quite slender. It felt so soft as if it didn't have bones or fat. And it felt soft and warm, which made touching it a pleasure. Shuyang felt touched. Recalling Xian Fei's evil words to him, he pinched Xian Fei's waist with his big hand. He found that this girl was marvelously slender. What did you do?" Xian Fei's soft body shivered. She stiffened her waist as she hurried to push Shuyang's arm away. She blushed when she glared at him. "Why did you pinch me?" "I was afraid that I couldn't hold you tight enough," explained Shuyang deliberately. "You asshole." Xian Fei stared at Shuyang. She acted as if she wanted to show her fangs and claws. "Didn't you just want to touch me?" "Nope. Your teacher asked me to bring you away," said Shuyang naturally. Xian Fei didn't say more and just glared at him as if she wanted to murder him right here. Shi Yang looked calm. He didn't bother with her gazing at him as he still looked at Yushan, who had turned to a massive blue fireball at this moment. She descended from the sky and furiously attacked the departed spirit jellyfish. Yushan's power Upanishad was the nemesis of the departed spirit jellyfish. Her flames had burned down all the toxins. This kind of blue flame was so scorching. It belonged to the top energy of Yang class. When she urged her energy, it was very intimidating, indeed. As the seawater evaporated, they could see a massive light curtain slowly float up. Inside the light curtain were big, blurry shadows. Taking a closer look, those shadows were battleships. Shi Yang's eyes brightened as he tried to see the situation inside the light curtain. He even mobilized energy to his eyes to have better vision. They were the Blood Devils team, who had disappeared unknowingly. When he saw Blood Devils group, those people inside the light curtain also saw him. A loud cheering burst out as if they wanted to blow up the light curtain. At this moment, the icy seawater had been burned to the bottom. The trap that confined Blood Devil's team was gone. Blood Devil, Bath, and Gut used their supernatural power to control the light curtain, which looked like a massive light globe that floated up into the sky. It avoided the departed spirit jellyfish and headed toward Shi Yang. Puff! Shi Yang didn't blink. His god body was shaken as a flow of recoiling power shot out from his body. Ah! Xian Fei screamed painfully from behind him. Her small fist felt like it was burned. She was trying to flip her hand back and forth as she screamed, "You! How did you train your god body? It's more rigid than metal. Ouch! I'm hurt." She had ambushed him and punched his back. However, she couldn't hurt Shi Yang and she hurt herself instead. The recoiling energy from his body affected her hard. She felt as if her wrist was broken. Her painful face looked both cute and pitiful. "You! I will remember it. I will never let it slip away." Xian Fei pointed at Shi Yang with her other hand, trying to give a threat weakly. Shi Yang turned around to look at her, laughing dryly. He didn't say much and just waved at Blood Devil and the others, asking them to come to him. "Daddy is convinced. Kid, you saved us. Oh, you mother ***, Blood Devil, you're so lucky." Bath shouted, his voice like thunderclaps. Blood Devil also looked at Shi Yang with an odd face. He looked at Shi Yang and nodded. Between them, there were many things they didn't need to say to understand each other. Chapter 1057, Meeting the Enemy Head-On. Chapter 1057, Meeting the Enemy Head-On. Yushan concentrated on dealing with the departed spirit jellyfish. Her blue flame moved like clusters of clouds in the space passage, occupying most of the space. The departed spirit jellyfish was quite hot-tempered at the beginning. It gushed more toxic smokes. The meat lumps all over its body squirted venom. The massive body of the jellyfish was now covered in different colors. With such momentum, it wanted to destroy Yushan thoroughly. Unfortunately, Yushan had fused with the flame of the origin and she had reached second sky of incipient god realm. She was its nemesis. No matter how hard it had tried to fume the toxic venom and smokes, Yushan could simply burn all things down with her heaven flame. Many clusters of blue fire covered the icy sea, making almost all of it vaporized. According to the ring spirit, the cold seawater was the derivative control fluid of the departed spirit jellyfish. When the seawater hadn't been dried up, as long as the jellyfish could still hide in the sea, it was invincible. However, the departed spirit jellyfish was about to collapse now. It was so worried. It should have been invincible everywhere. However, it had no choice when confronted by its archenemy. Shi Yang and Yushan had had an agreement. Shi Yang wouldn't interfere in her battle with the departed spirit jellyfish. Also, he didn't have such competence. Yushan had crossed the border to get here. On the one hand, she had the same grudge against the God clan. However, on the other hand, she had aimed at harvesting the magical things from the departed spirit jellyfish. After Blood Devil and the others had got rid of the restraint, they were all looking at the departed spirit jellyfish with resentment, their complexions dark. They seemed to want to kill this alien creature. Shi Yang timely stopped them. Don't attack it. She will handle it alone. Don't worry. She can do it. Who is she? Fu Wei of Potion and Tool Pavilion looked at Yushan from a distance, her face very surprised. Why does our Potion and Tool Pavilion not have any record of an expert cultivating fire power Upanishad at such a high realm? Is she? Shi Yang chuckled. You're right. She's not a warrior of Agate Star area. She comes from the neighboring Fiery Rain Star area. I've invited her here to deal with the departed spirit jellyfish. That thing is called departed spirit jellyfish? Barth smacked his tongue and screamed, Kid, how did you know the name of that thing? What is it after all? We were moved to under that sea. We'd tried everything we could, but we couldn't leave a scratch on that thing. How do you know how to deal with it? Everybody looked at Shi Yang inexplicably. Jia Duo and Feng Yang were startled. Their eyes were looking at him weirdly as if it was the first time they saw him. Inviting an expert from another star area to solve the departed spirit jellyfish. This kid, who was he? Why did he have so many secrets? They were so curious about Shi Yang now. Before I've arrived in Agate Star area, I'd been wandering to many strange lands. I know many strange but magical things in this universe. Shi Yang just gave them a perfunctory explanation. The nemesis of the departed spirit jellyfish are the experts who have fused with heaven flames of the origin at incipient god realm. After I knew you guys were confined down there, I couldn't do anything but go to another star area to find an expert with such characteristics. We can't understand you thoroughly, sighed the chief of Brutal Dragon Tribe. Don't compliment me that much. Shi Yang burst out laughing. You guys shouldn't interfere. Nothing unexpected will happen if that precursor handles the departed spirit jellyfish. Although you have a profound realm, it's not easy for you guys to deal with that departed spirit jellyfish. We should save energy then. Listening to him, everybody was embarrassed. They nodded quietly and then adjusted their energy to recover the energy they had consumed. Inside that chilling sea, they had used a lot of energy. They were about to all collapse. If Shi Yang hadn't brought Yushan here, the light curtain they had created would have vanished. The smokes would have entered their space. Blood Devil's team could have endured for a while, but the King God Realm and original God Realm warriors would have been poisoned to death. Even though they had gotten rid of the restraint, their situation wasn't good. Blood Devil, Barth, and GUT started to urge their energy to resume their condition. Energy began to twirl around them. Why have you joined hands with Fiery Rain Star area? Xia Xin Yang approached him while he hadn't recognized her. Her beautiful eyes raked around. Well, are those two women your new friends? Shi Yang put on the face of being wrongly treated. Don't make false assumptions. I've just known them. Why do you always think all of the female warriors would have something with me? Am I such a bastard? Well, someone has proven it with a big number. Xia Xin Yang pouted, mocking disdainfully. Shi Yang felt awkward. He searched through his thoughts carefully to realize his experiences weren't so convincing. No wonder why Xia Xin Yang considered a lot as if he was a famous robber. Hello. Xian Fei snorted, her face impatient. She waved at Shi Yang and said nonchalantly, Come here. We haven't finished our stuff yet. Why did you offend that little girl? Xia Xin Yang looked odd. I saw she had ambushed you with a punch. You harassed her, didn't you? Women's intuition was scary, indeed. She got it. Shi Yang jerked back, trying to sound more solemn. Nonsense. She's that precursor's disciple. She comes from Fiery Rain Star area. I think she wants to know something because she isn't familiar with our area. While talking, he flashed and left Xia Xin Yang's to go to Xian Fei. Then, he lowered his voice. Hey, you've hit me. We're done. What else do you want? You benefited, but I didn't. I hit you, but it's me who got hurt. Tell me, what do you think? Xian Fei's eyes twinkled as she glanced at Xia Xin Yang from a distance. She's your lover, right? I can tell at first glance. If you don't want her to know what you've done, you'd better give me a satisfactory offer. Shi Yang frowned. What do you want? I don't know yet. Xian Fei thought she had found Shi Yang's weakness. She stooped and grinned cunningly. You're afraid that that beautiful sister will be jealous, right? Haha, you're afraid of your wife. How dare you tease me that way? Shi Yang kept silent. While he was talking to Xian Fei, his line of sight was still fixed at Yu Shan's area. Yu Shan was urging all of her energy. Her blue flame was filling the space passage. Slowly, the departed spirit jellyfish didn't have a foothold and was immersed in the vast fire sea. Yu Shan started to refine the departed spirit jellyfish. Only the supernatural warriors who had fused with heaven flames at incipient god realm like her could have the power to refine the departed spirit jellyfish. Shi Yang was very curious. He wanted to know what special things this ancient creature, which had the extreme toxins all over its body, had that drew Yu Shan's attention. The ring spirit didn't tell him clearly. As he was worried and hurried to rescue Blood Devil's team, he hadn't asked it thoroughly. Today, as the situation was under control, he had free time to make it clear. What does the departed spirit jellyfish have that's worth my teacher traveling thousands of miles and crossing the border to get here? Asked Xian Fei earnestly. Shaking his head, Shi Yang lowered his voice. I'm also really curious. When we were in the fountainhead of Power Upanishad, didn't you say that it was a big chance for my master? You didn't know the details? Xian Fei was surprised. Did you deceive us? Bastard, we've crossed the border to get here. Do you think it's easy to do that? My master was cultivating in seclusion, but I forced her out. If you can't give me a good explanation, I won't let you go. If it weren't good, do you think your teacher would get here? Shi Yang smiled, but he actually wasn't happy. Although I don't know the actual situation, your teacher does. Didn't she tell you the details on the way here? I forgot to ask her. Xian Fei was embarrassed. On the way here, my teacher only asked questions related to you. She didn't talk about the departed spirit jellyfish. Sigh, okay. Never mind. Just wait and see. If you dare to deceive us, I'm sure I won't let you live in peace. Look, we will have the answer soon. The departed spirit jellyfish ballooned and then shrank. Gradually, the flesh body of a mountain had become 10 times smaller. However, it still occupied an area of 1,000 square meters. The meat lumps all over its body still fumed toxic smokes, creating a magical membrane that covered its entire body. The blue flame of the origin surged turbulently. It crept on the membrane like fire snakes, releasing the earth-shaking heat wave to refine the jellyfish. Under the scorching heat of the flaming origin, the membrane made by the toxic smokes dissolved slowly. However, this process wasn't fast. It needed time. While people were watching in silence, Jia Duo was muttering to people of Potion and Tool Pavilion. Suddenly, his brows twitched as he screamed in fear. He's coming. Who? Barth glanced at him impatiently. Jia Duo changed his face. The incipient God Realm expert with space power Upanishad. I can sense the change of space. He's coming here rapidly. Hearing him, everybody was shaken. Blood Devil's team had their murderous aura shoot up into the sky. They stopped their recovery progress. Their countenances turned malicious. Good. Blood Devil shouted. We're well prepared this time. I do want to see how he messed with us. That mother-f***ka. I have never been so humiliated. I do want to see who is that cunning bastard. Barth faced the sky and roared. While roaring, he shot up into the air and changed to his true form. A several thousand-meter dragon as big as a battleship appeared in the void. The brutal aura from his fine-scaled armor was so intimidating. Hey! Shi Yang. I'm in charge of the departed spirit jellyfish only. I don't have extra energy to deal with other people. Yu Shan also heard what they said. Her charming face changed as she pitched her voice. Understood. Shi Yang hurried to gather his energy. He regarded her and then became more cautious. He prepared to counter the furious attack of the coming expert. Many experts of the Monster Clan, Demon Clan, Fighting League, and Potion and Tool Pavilion began to mobilize their powers. Fierce energy waves expanded from their bodies. They had a chance to vent out their compressed anger. They were ready to assault the ringleader who had moved them into that damn icy sea. Chapter 1058, Her Graceful Bearing. Chapter 1058, Her Graceful Bearing. The two old men of the Dark Shadow clan who had just arrived were Bello and Kelda. Both of them glared at Yushan, refining the departed spirit jellyfish with malicious countenances. They attacked her immediately without any hesitation. Kelda's ghastly aura turned into icy, chilled-to-bone vortexes, which expanded into tornadoes shortly after. With tremendous energy, they seemed to be able to break this entire space passage as they were heading towards Yushan. Bello frowned. A fantasy incipient extent arose above his head. It looked like layers of space were piling up on top of each other. Tens of thousands of shining space blades filled his extent. Each of them was even sharper than a knife, as if they could tear any kind of barrier. All were darting towards Yushan. The Dark Shadow clan had borrowed the departed spirit jellyfish from the Ascot family of the God clan. They wanted to use the jellyfish to attack Agate Star area if necessary. If the departed spirit jellyfish was refined here when the God clan wanted to invade the other star area, it wouldn't have any deadly attacks. Dark Shadow clan couldn't bear this responsibility. They came here to make sure the departed spirit jellyfish wouldn't meet any unexpected event. That's Kelda, one of the leaders of the Dark Shadow clan. His Cocker's older brother. His at second sky of incipient God realm. He cultivates Yin Power Upanishad. Fu Wei changed her face, shouting instinctively. Who is that incipient God realm expert with space power Upanishad? Asked Shi Yang hurriedly. He must be chief of the Dark Shadow clan. Fu Wei wasn't so sure. Anyway, chief of the Dark Shadow clan rarely appears in Shadow Ghostly Prison. Potion and Tool Pavilion doesn't have much information on him. This is the first time I saw him. A little tough then, sighed Shi Yang. At this moment, Blood Devil, Bath, Gut, and Feng Yang, the four incipient God realm experts, had flown out and faced the two experts of the Dark Shadow clan. However, Bello and Kelda didn't look fearful in this unfavorable situation. They didn't want to retreat. Apparently, they weren't afraid of Blood Devil's team. Shi Yang understood immediately. The others knew that Blood Devil's team had consumed a lot of energy, so they weren't in their best conditions at this moment. That was why the other two weren't worried at all. Among this group of four, Feng Yang was at first sky of incipient God realm. While they were under the icy sea, she was in the worst situation. At this moment, she had only 2/3 of her power remaining. If she had to face the enemies in this condition, she couldn't promote her abilities to the utmost. Blood Devil was at second sky of incipient God realm. Bath and Gut were the great warriors of the Monster Clan, which used a different scale to measure their level. However, their levels were also similar to second sky of incipient God realm. Their initial abundant energy would have been enough to deal with Bello and Kelda with a chance to gain the upper hand. However, Shi Yang wasn't so sure at this moment. He frowned and released the soul consciousness to sense. With his understanding of the mighty space power Upanishad, he guessed that Bello was at second sky of incipient God realm. Otherwise, Bello wouldn't have only cut the space and confined Blood Devil and the others in the chilling seawater. That chief of the Dark Shadow clan is at second sky of incipient God realm. Jia Duo confirmed Shi Yang's guess. We can't win this battle. Xia Xinyang, Fu Wei, Jia Duo, and Leona gathered by Shi Yang. A group of young experts just stood and watched from a distance. They hadn't taken action yet. An ear-piercing cry sounded. Gute, chief of brutal dragon tribe, also transformed into his dragon body. Just like Bath of the evil dragon tribe, he was rigid as if he was made of rock and iron. He had dragon armor all over his body. The aura of his energy was immense like the sea, rippling through his body, which had subdued people's minds. Blood Devil hovered by Bath and Gut. He looked small, but the enormous energy fluctuations from him had impressed people. Drops of garnet blood as beautiful as diamonds seeped through Blood Devil's skin. Each of them stored Blood Davy's soul consciousness, filled with energy waves that could destroy the whole sky. Blood Devil extended his arm and his finger touched the void. 10 immortal demon blood condensed. In his blood sea incipient extent, they slowly turned into 10 clones. Each of them had a murderous aura shoot up into the sky. They also understood the energy fluctuation, flying out of his incipient extent and dashing towards Kelda. Inside Feng Yang's incipient extent, the wind blades were gliding and hissing ear-piercingly. She had gathered all of her power and aimed it at Kelda. Bello, chief of the Dark Shadow clan, controlled the space blades flying out of his sea of consciousness. However, Barth and Gut had stopped him before he could have time to attack Yushan. Barth and Gut shouted, their monster bodies wiggled while thick dragon scales on their bodies sounded explosions. The breath of the two dragons flew out intimidatingly. The dragon breath of the brutal dragon tribe and evil dragon tribe was the force that gathered the most furious and fiercest power in this world. Currents of dragon breath looked like light columns condensed by energy. The powerful energy fluctuation in there could threaten anybody. As space blades of Bello, chief of Dark Shadow clan, were confronted by the dragon breath, they couldn't move further to attack Yushan. 6 incipient God Realm experts were taking action in the space passage. Their energy shockwaves were enough to destroy the whole world. The space passage sent billions of sparks into the void. When the energy light beams hit the battleships, they were shattered as if they were made of paper. The battleships of the Monster Clan, Demon Clan, Fighting League, and Potion and Tool Pavilion were the high-quality battleships in Agate Star area. They were really tough. However, at this moment, they were too fragile under such formidable attacks. Move! Scatter! Xia Xinyang screamed. Her bold brows knitted together while her beautiful eyes sparkling in the strange light. She didn't look away from the battle between the 6 incipient God Realm experts. All battleships moved quickly in the direction of Agate Star area. Most of the experts on the battleships were frightened. They were scared because of the battle between the 6 incipient God Realm experts. Instinctively, they had a feeling of being defeated already. Gather energy and attack Kelda, Xia Xinyang gave her order calmly. Even though the incipient God Realm is strong, facing many people of our force, we can wear him out to death. As long as we aren't subdued, our energy won't be less than those precursors. During the recent years, Xia Xinyang had always been fighting in the Dark Shadow clan. With her commandership at the Windstorm War Department, she had many good attainments in this kind of battle. Listening to Xia Xinyang, the warriors of her Windstorm War Department pulled themselves together. They returned to their positions. Waiting until their battleships were tens of thousands of meters away from the 6 incipient God Realm experts, they tacitly urged their power Upanishad at the same time, using the soul consciousness to lock Kelda. Immediately, different types of thunderbolts, ice sabers, rising tides, scorching flames, and countless energy ribbons were released massively. They moved like several thousands of shooting stars and furiously dashed towards Kelda. As they had used their soul consciousness to lock Kelda, their fierce attacks seemed to have eyes. They hit Kelda, but none of them had touched Feng Yang, Blood Devil, Gut, Barth, or Yushan. This kind of attack was skillful, indeed. At second sky of incipient God Realm, if Kelda had a one-on-one battle, he could kill the lower realm enemy in just a blink of an eye. However, at this moment, Blood Devil and Feng Yang were joining hands to attack Kelda. Especially Blood Devil. He had used his immortal demon blood and the life power Upanishad to create the blood sea above his head. The 10 bloody shadows had pushed Kelda into a helter-skelter situation. Although Feng Yang had consumed a lot of energy, she was a first sky of incipient God Realm expert. At this moment, Blood Devil had successfully oppressed Kelda. She didn't need to care about her safety. She just released her powers to attack Kelda as much as she wanted. When more than 1,000 bunches of light from different energies shot towards him like rainbow crossing the sun, they hit Kelda precisely. He frowned as he was impatient and got agitated. Boom. 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 Most of the attacking energy that had hit Kelda's god body made him sway as if the meteors had impacted him. His god body even smoked. Kelda grimaced. He looked at Shi Yang from a distance, cursing something under his breath. Then, he concentrated on Blood Devil. Don't stay idle. Xia Xinyang was as calm as usual. She called the warriors of the Monster Clan, Demon Clan, and Potion and Tool Pavilion. Gather your energy and let them see whether the power of many people can hurt them badly or not. Everybody became excited. Thousands of warriors of the Monster Clan, Demon Clan, Windstorm War Department and Potion and Tool Pavilion were all at King Godrealm, Original Godrealm, and Ethereal Godrealm. In Agate Star area, they were the best of the best force. After thousands of them had been awakened to join hands, they were able to create the thick attack that looked like perpetual fire raindrops by the edge of Fiery Rainstar area. They weaved with each other, all targeting Kelda. As Kelda was at second sky of incipient God realm, even if he didn't have Blood Devil and Feng Yang as his opponents, it was still very strenuous to confront the powerful combined force of more than 1,000 warriors. Currently, Kelda's situation was very bad. Streams of powerful energy that attacked Kelda were all guided by the soul consciousness, so they precisely avoided Blood Devil and Feng Yang to hit only Kelda. The proverb said that 2 fists couldn't beat 4 hands. The disordered punches could kill the Kung Fu master. When Xia Xinyang carried out her plan and coordinated several thousand warriors to attack at the same time, Kelda was struck hard and he got dizzy eventually. The dazzling, continuous attacks were reflected in his eyes. Those powers couldn't hurt him instantly, but they could drain his body's defense. Once the energy that he had reserved to defend his god body was worn out, those attacks could hit him severely. They could even kill him. Xia Xinyang had been fighting year-round. Once she was placid enough to resist the energy, her performance could make people gawk. The incipient God Realm experts are strong, but they aren't really invincible. As long as we have enough manpower, tens of thousands of King God Realm warriors are still able to kill them. Xia Xinyang looked calm and natural as she pushed the black hair above her forehead behind her ears. If we can use our power wisely, we can defeat them without our 4 precursors. An incipient God Realm expert has the power of dozens of ethereal God Realm experts. Since we have such enormous combined power, it's enough to kill him and leave him no energy to counterattack. Her aura had stirred up people. Seeing Kelda being helter-skelter under their thick attacks, they were more certain about her assumption. The terrifying pressure Chief Bello and leader Kelda of the Dark Shadow Clan had caused them was erased after several words of Xia Xinyang. Shi Yang smiled, looking at Xia Xinyang next to him. He felt so proud. After 100 years, she has reached an amazing height. Whether it was her wisdom, realm, or leadership, she was always outstanding. In a fierce battle, she wasn't afraid. She could deliberately plan and implement her plan. No wonder she could command the Windstorm War Department of Fighting League. As the warriors of Monster Clan, Demon Clan, and Potion and Tool Pavilion listened to her order and carried out her plan, they had approved her leadership in battle. With Xia Xinyang's waves of attacks, Blood Devil and Feng Yang could almost step away from this battle. They just needed to control the situation to not let Kelda break their defense and approach Xia Xinyang. At this moment, they didn't need to release more energy to attack Kelda. From a distance, Blood Devil glared at Xia Xinyang, discreetly giving her his compliments. He thought that this woman wasn't ordinary at all. Chapter 1059, Battling. Chapter 1059, Battling. Shi Yang floated in the void as he watched the battle of the 6 incipient God Realm experts. He didn't want to join them. This battle was going to be recorded in the history of Agate Star area. It wasn't something that warriors at his level could change. At this moment, he didn't have that competence. He remembered what that man told him: try your best to conceal your identity before you reached incipient God Realm. The Dark Shadow Clan and the God Clan had a close relationship. Cocker could guess his identity. So did Chief Bello and Kelda when they saw him using his powers. Seeing the God Clan chase after Benny through different star areas, he knew that the God Clan had never quit hunting the Bloodthirstis bloodline. Shi Yang was the descendant of the master of the Bloodthirstis bloodline. Once his identity was exposed, the God Clan would try to trap and destroy him at any cost. And it wasn't going to be exclusive to the Ascot family. Shi Yang knew that he didn't have the competence to resist them now. Staying hidden was vital at this moment. He had to conceal himself to avoid receiving the attack he could never imagine. Anyway, this battle didn't need a bit of his energy. It has been 100 years and Xia Xinyang's good grasp of the general situation in fighting had surprised Shi Yang. Under her command, warriors of the Monster Clan, Demon Clan, Fighting League, and Potion and Tool Pavilion had attacked neatly. The four forces took turns to perform their eye-catching powers. Under the mad destructive attack of thousands of warriors, Kelda was helter-skelter. He couldn't threaten Blood Devil and Feng Yang anymore. Blood Devil and Feng Yang were free now. They just needed to ensure that Kelda couldn't attack Xia Xinyang and the others. Then, they didn't need to worry about the situation anymore. Later on, Kelda's energy had been worn out massively. He started to sweat. It indicated that even if he was at second sky of incipient God realm, he couldn't endure such continuous attacks. Shiyang could be more relaxed. As advised by Shiyang, Fei Lan, Leona, Ka Tuor, and Benny were also idle. They just stood and watched the peak battle of the 6 incipient God realm experts from a distance. Those who were lucky enough to have the chance to watch this battle could harvest something unimaginable, especially Shiyang. Yu Shan was still refining the departed spirit jellyfish with her precise heat control. Each of the blue flames was like the container of her soul. They danced swiftly like groups of animated spirits. They gathered and created magic as her mind flickered. Her flame was burning torrentially and hiding the magical origin of earth and heaven, which matched the truth of flames in this world. Blood Devil urged his life power Upanishad while demon blood was boiling in his body. 10 bloody shadows, which looked like Blood Devil, all had part of his powers. They were flying and blocking 8 directions around Kelda, preventing him from escaping. Life power Upanishad was also something he needed to understand thoroughly. Blood Devil's magical deeds had opened a door for Shiyang, which rose his enthusiasm. Chief Bello of the Dark Shadow clan was an incipient god realm with space power, which was extremely rare. While his thoughts changed, the space around him shattered and cracked like broken glass, revealing fine space slits. Those space slits could draw away the attacking energy that had threatened his life. Bello's cognition of space power had reached an unimaginable level. He could confine space or tear it as easily as he pleased. Sometimes, he swayed and moved through spaces. His application of space power had reached the utmost exquisite level. Shiyang understood fire, life, and space power Upanishad, but none of them had reached the level of Yushan, Blood Devil, and Bello. Observing the battle of the top warriors, especially the ones who had the same power Upanishad, it was the most magical and yet practical experience for the onlookers like Shiyang. Of course, he wouldn't let this chance slip away. If he could harvest some knowledge from the battle of the 6 incipient God realm experts where they had used their profound powers, it would benefit him much more than taking in the essence chi of an incipient God realm expert. Shiyang didn't join the battle. He just stood aside and watched the 3 familiar powers Upanishad that the 3 incipient God realm experts were using and changing marvelously. They could create countless changes, which reflect the most supernatural feature of the power Upanishad. Shiyang was touched, sinking in the information uncontrollably. Finally, he knew how far incipient God realm was from his current realm. It was also the first time Shiyang saw to what extreme degree the fire, life, and space power Upanishad could change. He quietly learned. His eyes didn't even blink. He had focused wholeheartedly, using his soul consciousness to sense. At this moment, his soul altar started to spin. Something was changing subtly in his tier of power Upanishads, as if his energy was simulating the magical abilities that those powers Upanishads were performing. It was an ingenious sublimation of the soul and realm. Gut and Bath of the Monster Clan were using their monster bodies to join hands and fight Bello. At second sky of incipient God realm, Bello had cultivated space power Upanishad. However, in the battle with Gut and Bath, he couldn't gain the upper hand. Although Monster Clan didn't stress on cultivating the soul, their body's toughness was deemed the peak of this world. Their monster bodies were the toughest material that even space blades couldn't cut through shortly. At most, they could only leave some cuts on the dragon body. At the same time, the dragon breath they released had troubled Bello a lot. His face became more grimaced. As Kelda was taken care of intensively, he became tired quickly. His aura was reduced massively. In the beginning, Blood Devil stood still. Later on, he didn't use only his bloody shadows to attack the enemy anymore. His demon body sent out brutal energy fluctuations like that of an exploding star. His body sounded like several explosions had happened while his blood chi shot up into the sky. He had turned into a flow of abundant life energy and fused it with his incipient extent. Like a sea of life, his incipient extent swarmed over and covered Kelda. "You guys. Switch your intensive care to the other." Blood Devil's voice arose all of a sudden when the sea of life derived from his incipient extent had covered Kelda entirely. Those layers of life energy contained the magical power of nature that even Feng Yang couldn't interfere with. Xia Xin Yang smiled and nodded. She extended her hand and pointed, "We should appreciate the chief of the Dark Shadow clan more." Warriors of the Monster Clan, Demon Clan, Fighting League and Potion and Tool Pavilion followed her order. They changed their target and brought their pressure to Chief Bello of the Dark Shadow clan. Shi Yang would never underestimate the power of a crowd again. Now he believed that the power of 1,000 warriors wisely striking at the same time could kill even incipient God Realm expert. Incipient God Realm experts weren't absolutely invincible. Although they could kill the lower realm warriors in just a blink of an eye, when the number of the low realm warriors could reach a terrifying figure, they could unite to act at the same time. Then, they would give a terrible headache to incipient God Realm experts. Bello was so worried as if he had a flame burning his heart. Gut and Bath's wild attacks had distracted him terribly. At this moment, more than 1,000 warriors were striking him and pushing him to the corner. The aura of the departed spirit jellyfish was weakened gradually. Seeing the jellyfish be about to refine by the scorching flame of the origin, he had become more agitated as he didn't know what to explain to the Ascot family. He continued to create the space passage as he wanted to escape this area. However, he needed to wholly concentrate his mind in order to tear the space in the space passage to bring the departed spirit jellyfish away. At this moment, Gut and Bath didn't give him time to breathe. And Xia Xin Yang had commanded more than 1,000 warriors to bombard him. It was impossible for him to do that. Warriors of Potion and Tool Pavilion, Fighting League, Monster Clan and Demon Clan had been suffocating the incipient God Realm experts right from the beginning. However, seeing the two incipient God Realm expert draining their energy rapidly under their bombarding, all looked happy. They had more significant respect for the woman who had set up this plan. They were cheered up because of her wisdom and excellent performance. They could see that they were about to win this fight and at the same time, they were the primary factor that led to this victory. This made them secretly excited. They began to pour more energy. Their powers, Upanishads, ethereal extent, powers, and the secret treasures that could enhance their attacks fell like a heavy shower. Their attacks were continuous and extremely precise. They crushed Bello's space blades and sent sparks everywhere. Everybody was happy as they thought that it was about to over. However, when the two Dark Shadow experts couldn't stand it anymore, something unexpected happened. Butterfly battleships emerged from the space passage where streamers weaved. As soon as several hundred battleships appeared, countless distinctive butterfly war chariots of the Dark Shadow clan roared and roamed over like a massive flutter of butterflies. Xia Xin Yang changed her face as she decided quickly. Rush in and kill them. The war chariots of Windstorm War Department formed a sharp formation. Her figure flashed as she went to the front line of their formation. Their attacking formation was like a sharp, rigid saber thrusting into the coming warriors of the Dark Shadow clan. The Windstorm War Department of Fighting League was famous for their swift attacks. Their flying bird war chariots were as agile as electric beams and as sharp as the extreme swords. Warriors of the Fighting League always followed rules and discipline while fighting. As the battles had quenched them, they had learned from experience. Warriors with keen powers, Upanishads like metal, ice, and electric were in charge of the tip of their attacking formation. Warriors with water, wind, and earth powers, Upanishad, stayed behind the formation to create layers of barriers to protect the people in the front line. Both the attackers and defenders had their clear and distinctive roles, which they had shown through their close-knit cooperation. Shadow Ghostly Prison was the hot arena of fiercest battles in Agate Star area. And the Fighting League was the most outstanding force of this area. They knew all the strategies and tactics. They were indeed the best elite force in Agate Star area. There were several hundred warriors remaining in the Windstorm War Department. However, when they formed a formation, they were indeed a whole unit. People couldn't find any gap to attack this formation. Warriors of the Dark Shadow clan roamed like a swarm of bees whose hive was broken. They expanded like when people unfolded a fabric sheet. However, Xia Xinyang's troop had torn a corner of them, piercing directly into the center where the experts of Dark Shadow clan were gathering. Shi Yang watched the sharp formation of the Windstorm War Department, and he had only one thought in his mind at this moment: they were able to break even the hardest defense. That elegant yet gorgeous woman was the soul of that formation. She was like the tip of the sword when she used her talents. Kill. Fu Wei hissed. Her face chilled when she urged the warriors of Potion and Tool Pavilion to join the battle. Warriors of the Monster Clan and Demon Clan started to take action. They moved like three furious flood currents swarming over the members of the Dark Shadow clan. The fierce battle between thousands of warriors from different clans began. Shi Yang still looked cold. He still hovered while his eyes raked through the mob of the Dark Shadow clan, Fighting League, Potion and Tool Pavilion, Monster Clan, and Demon Clan who were killing each other. He could see that the individual fighting competence of the Monster, Demon warriors was much stronger than the warriors of Windstorm War Department. If they fought one-on-one, a Monster, Demon warrior could defeat a Windstorm warrior. However, in guild combat like this, Shi Yang figured out that the Monster and Demon clans weren't so good. The cooperation between them was poor and they struggled. No need to mention Windstorm commanded by Xia Xinyang, they couldn't even be compared to Potion and Tool Pavilion's warriors led by Fu Wei. This was war. It was not just a battle between some warriors. In this kind of fighting, the army with a commander that knew how to promote the power of the Union was much stronger than a vanguard in vain. Shi Yang frowned. This was the first time he recognized how weak individuals were in this kind of battle with thousands of warriors unless a person's realm had reached a level so strong that he or she could risk their life with the enemy. He also recognized Xia Xinyang's ability in controlling and promoting the power of her army. This ability was extraordinary and precious, indeed. Chapter 1060, Leona's Spearhead. Chapter 1060, Leona's Spearhead. Inside the space passage that connected Agate Star area and Ancient Godstar area, the fiercest war had begun. Both sides hadn't invested much power in this battle. It could be considered a small-scale battle. However, the effect of it could raise a lot of attention. The shockwaves of the furious battle of the 6 incipient God Realm experts were too powerful to this passage as it had almost broken the passage. Sparks of energy shot aimlessly, which terrified people and forced them to dodge. The other warriors were alert enough to avoid the area where the incipient God Realm experts were fighting. If they were careless and got hit, their souls could perish. Dark Shadow Clan was a feudal vassal of the God Clan. However, as they could stay subtly for many years in Shadow Ghostly Prison and fight the strongest force, the Fighting League, they were proven to not be ordinary. Just like the Fighting League, the Dark Shadow Clan was also a force that had excelled at combat. Their experts had formed the Snakehead Formation, which could change swiftly and flexibly. Although they had acted mysteriously, they could always notice the whole situation and a powerful fighting competence. Among the Demon Clan, Monster Clan, Potion and Tool Pavilion, and the Fighting League, the 4 powerful forces of Agate Star area, the Monster Clan and Demon Clan had an intimidating individual fighting ability. However, they were clumsy in using big army formations to fight in a war. While fighting the Dark Shadow Clan, they didn't have a formation, so they couldn't promote the power of the army. As Fu Wei was controlling Potion and Tool Pavilion's force, they had also formed a fighting formation, which was a hexagon with 6 attacking points. However, the power of an individual of Potion and Tool Pavilion was the weakest compared to the others in this group of 4 forces. Warriors of Potion and Tool Pavilion had held an important role in Agate Star area for a long time. They had earned respect from forces everywhere. Thus, they didn't have many chances to experience bloody battles. That was why they couldn't utilize the full power of the hexagonal formation. Only the Windstorm War Department of the Fighting League hadn't fallen into the lower hand while fighting members of Dark Shadow Clan. And they had even inclined to gain the upper hand. Fighting League's forces had been fighting for years in Shadow Ghostly Prison. They had bloody experience from the battles. Each warrior of this force was very familiar with guild combat. Under Xia Xinyang's command, they had all performed their best. Shi Yang's team shrank into a chunk as they watched the battle between the Dark Shadow clan and the native forces of Agate Star area. It seemed like they didn't want to join this battle. Fei Lan, Leona, Ka Tuor, Benny, and Xian Ming gathered around Shi Yang. As he didn't say anything, they stood in silence. When Xian Fei saw the battle become fiercer, she proactively went to Shi Yang. She didn't look panic-stricken at all. Only the force that the sister is controlling is good. The other three are just SOSO, assessed Xian Fei arrogantly. You must have experienced the same battles, eh? According to you, the competence of your fiery rain star area is very intimidating, right? Shi Yang turned his head to look at her, his eyes calm. What do you think about the Dark Shadow clan? Xian Fei shook her head. Their competence can't be compared to the official legion of the God clan. You've never seen the God clan's fierce competence before. Pausing for a while, Xian Fei continued earnestly. If the same 1,000-soldier army of the God clan came here, it could effortlessly destroy the forces of your Agate Star area even when you join with Dark Shadow clan. Shi Yang shivered. Even when the Fighting League, Potion and Tool Pavilion, Monster Clan, and Demon Clan join hands with the Dark Shadow Clan, they won't be able to resist the army of 1,000 soldiers from the God Clan. If they could triple their soldiers here, perhaps they could endure a battle. Xian Fei nodded and sighed. The power of God Clan's legion is the nightmare of all star areas. They are the top confirmed strongest warriors. As you haven't seen them directly, you could never imagine their intimidation. Fiery Rain Star area has fought against them several times. We had to bear great losses in the case we outnumbered them. If the realm of the troopers from the two sides was equal, we would have been swept away as easily as breaking dried branches of trees. People all changed their visages. The God Clan could take down half of the universe not only because they have so many experts, but also because they have excelled in guild combat. Their good grasp of guild combat isn't something you could imagine. Only when you see with your own eyes will you know how terrifying this clan is. Xian Fei bit her lower lip, her eyes showing a gleam of sadness. My family was destroyed by a troop of the God Clan. From that day, I knew how terrible the core of this clan is. Don't think that the Dark Shadow clan is strong. If it's strong enough, it wouldn't just be a vassal of God Clan. In a simple comparison, if it's a troop of original God Realm warriors, the God Clan's troop of 1,000 can beat your troop of 10,000. It's the gap between you guys. Shi Yang, Fei Lan, Leona, and the others were flustered. The God Clan's troops are indeed powerful. I used to encounter them. Benny suddenly talked and looked at Shi Yang and Leona with a distressed face. However, our bloodline has excellent knowledge in guild combat. We're not that much worse than the God Clan. Shi Yang's eyes brightened. Xian Fei didn't agree with him and she sneered, "Little buddy, your realm isn't high but your voice is big enough. In this vast sea of stars, I have never heard of any troop in any star area that could be compared to the God Clans. You don't actually know how vast the world is." Benny snorted and said arrogantly, "It's because you're stupid." The two of them looked like they were about to quarrel. Shi Yang waved his hand, signaling Benny not to talk too much with Xian Fei while he contemplated. Shi Yang knew that the bloodthirstiest bloodline at the peak of their time had almost uprooted the God Clan. 12 great families of God Clan had joined hands and sacrificed countless warriors to stop the attack of the bloodthirstiest troop. As the God Clan was too powerful, the bloodthirstiest bloodline that year was evidently formidable and intimidating. Benny came from the destruction family of the bloodthirstiest bloodline, which used to overlord the star area where they dwelled. Their family should have some records of excellent war strategies and tactics. Thus, he wasn't afraid of the competence of the God Clan's troops. When he could make it clear, his shivering heart would become steady. Shi Yang was now sure that if this world could have a troop that could resist God Clan, it was the troop of Bloodthirsty. We also have a set of materials to train on how to command the army. Although I've never made a comparison, I thought, it wouldn't be weaker than the god clans. Leona didn't like to talk much. However, when she spoke, her ferocious face always had a gleam of coldness. The bloody legion I had built was based on the method that my family has imparted through generations. In our raging flamestar area, my bloody legion had never lost a battle. Leona's spearhead emerged. Her words were full of confidence. If she could control a corporation, she could compete with God Clan. Well, the people of Agate Star area are too arrogant. The latter is more arrogant than the former. Sigh, I guess you've never seen how strong God Clan is. That's why you dare to talk haughtily. One day, when you meet them, you will know how funny your statement is today. Xian Fei shook her head as she was disdainful. Shi Yang didn't mind her and just looked at Leona. Shi Yang suddenly remembered that Leona was the regimental commander of the Bloody Legion. And the reputation of this legion in raging Flamestar area could give her such confidence. He knew Leona wasn't an impulsive person. Pondering for a while, he asked, "What do you think about Xia Xinyang's troop? And how about the formation she's using now?" Honestly, Leona thought for a while and then said frankly, "If I can have a troop with similar competence after 1 year or training, I can tear her force easily. If they let me command the troops of Monster Clan and Demon Clan, I'm sure I can maximize their competence several times further." Hearing her, people kept silent. All looked at her with astonishment. Shi Yang was also startled. "Is it true?" "Yes," Leona was calm. "I don't know the God Clan's fighting competence, but if you let me train a troop of original God Realm warriors strenuously, I'm sure I can compete with the God Clan." Arrogant and conceited, Xian Fei concluded, her face disdainful. Xian Ming didn't say anything. However, he was looking at Leona with his odd visage. "Why don't you try it?" Ka Tuor was shocked, but he managed to speak. "Senior, Monster Clan and Demon Clan have a good relationship with you. Can you talk to them?" "Okay, I'm going to talk them about this." Shi Yang's thought flickered in his mind. He nodded and he waved at Leona. He took her to the area of the Monster Clan and Demon Clan where they were fighting. After deliberately killing some Dark Shadow clansmen, he found McGee, Ghost Hunter, and Jiyu Mo. "I want to talk to you guys." Ghost Hunter didn't say anything as he nodded. This kind of absolute trust showed that he had no doubt for Shi Yang. McGee and Jiyu Mo were surprised. They were still fighting with the Dark Shadow clan, so they had to stop to ask in unison, "What?" Pointing at Leona, Shi Yang asked, "What do you think about letting her command your troops for a while?" "Ha!" McGee and Jiyu Mo had a bewildered countenance. Jiyu Mo frowned. "If Xia Xinyang wants to command us, I'm happy to let her do so." "But her, are you sure?" "Yes, she can." Shi Yang confirmed. "Let her try." McGee and Jiyu Mo hesitated for a while. However, they suspiciously agreed. They looked strange when they eyed Leona. The reason why they agreed with him was because Shi Yang had helped them twice. He had used his supernatural star power Upanishad to help them move through the chaotic sea of shooting stars. Then, he had contacted the expert from the other star area to save them from the icy sea controlled by the departed spirit jellyfish. "Just hit it as hard as you can." Shi Yang glanced at Leona. He didn't stay here, leaving from the battle side. Shi Yang had taken in the essence chi of dozens of dead warriors. His acupuncture points were swollen and his body was aching. He was both fearful and happy as he thought that the bloody battlefield was the right place for him in this world. He came back to hover by Fei Lan, Ka Tuor, and Xian Fei. They were all looking at Leona, waiting hopefully. In between the formation of the Monster Clan and Demon Clan, cold-faced Leona was talking to McGee, Ghost Hunter, and Go Mo. She was about to spread her order. McGee, Jiyu Mo, and Ghost Hunter nodded quietly as they had agreed with her. The members of the Monster Clan and Demon Clan scattering around suddenly changed their formation. The clansmen of the two clans started to arrange and line up. Now they looked like two open wings of the bloody demon, which now began to show its fangs. A brutal, savage aura burst out from that formation instantly. Shi Yang, Xian Ming, and Ka Tuor were baffled, their eyes brightening. Xian Fei gawked and covered her mouth. "Oh my god!" Chapter 1061. I say you can do it so you can do it. Chapter 1061. I say you can do it so you can do it. The Monster Clan and Demon Clan had fought like loose sand without any worth-mentioned strategy. And they didn't even have a concept of the so-called guild combat. They were fighting against the Dark Shadow Clan with the power of their individual bodies only. When Leona took control of the troops from the two clans, the Demon and Monster clansmen who participated in the battle didn't feel much change. However, Shi Yang, Fei Lan, Benny, Xian Ming, Xian Fei, the onlookers, could see the absolute difference. Troops of Monster Clan and Demon Clan operated like the two wings of a demon. A brutal, resentful aura burst out, guiding the clansmen of the Demon Clan and Monster Clan. While their formation was changing, their auras combined into one. At this moment, the Monster and Demon clansmen had formed a solid formation that couldn't be divided or broken. This kind of intimidation had subdued people immediately. The individual fighting competence of the Monster and Demon clansmen had surpassed the warriors of Potion and Tool Pavilion and Fighting League. They hadn't shown that before because they weren't good at guild combat. Leona was the regimental commander of the Bloody Legion, a descendant of the Dark Sky family. She had inherited the talent of planning and developing strategies from the Bloodthirstis bloodline. The aura she had generated was enough to tear the Dark Shadow Clan into pieces. They could see clearly that the Dark Shadow warriors had to dodge strenuously after the Monster and Demon warriors knew how to back each other up. Dark Shadow warriors were killed massively under the mighty power of the Monster Clan and Demon Clan. The Dark Shadow clansmen who were fighting the Monster and Demon troops felt a significant pressure that they had never felt before. At this moment, they had to mobilize the warriors who were fighting Potion and Tool Pavilion to help them deal with the Monster and Demon warriors. Those members of the Dark Shadow Clan didn't know what was going on. They were so confused. Apparently, the members of the two clans couldn't cooperate well before. However, it was unknown why they suddenly had tactics as if their eyes had opened. This was an earth-shaking change, indeed. Now, they gathered into teams of 3 or 5. Those teams cooperated well to fight with tactics to create a big formation. Their terrifying fighting competence was now finally revealed. Instantaneously, the clansmen of the Dark Shadow Clan started to detach and collapse, which were the signs of defeat. Xian Fei covered her mouth, her face frightened. She was perplexed, seeing the earth-shaking change of the Monster and Demon formation after Leona had joined them. She was so bewildered that she couldn't explain it. How could it be? They just added one more member and everything changed dramatically like that. Xian Ming also discolored. He looked at Leona bewilderedly and then glanced at Shi Yang hovering next to him. His face was strange, indeed. At this moment, Xian Ming had a strange feeling. This young man was predestined to be the brightest star in this vast universe. No one could shade his light. The onlookers who were still calm were all people who had known Leona before. Fei Lan was as calm as usual as if she knew that Leona had such ability. Ka Tuor grinned evilly while he looked at Leona in the middle of the demon and monster warrior formations. He thought that the slaughtering star of Raging Flame Star area was back. Her understanding and attainment of guild combat are much more exquisite than that woman's. Benny let out a low scream. She could be compared to my family's precursors that year. Everybody could see how familiar Leona was in using formations to battle. She was much more skillful than Xia Xinyang. However, this kind of difference couldn't be made up of experiences gained from battling. So, it was likely because of some secret inheritance. After Leona had entered the formation, the soldiers of the Monster Clan and Demon Clan seemed to have new lives. Now they had a formation with a soul. She seemed to have some magical method that could combine the auras of the individual soldiers into one united, massive aura that was also wild and savage. This aura could even affect the enemy's minds, making them dispirited and distressed as if they had already been defeated. The battle between the 6 incipient God Realm experts, Fighting League, Potion and Tool Pavilion, and the Dark Shadow Clan, as well as Yushan refining the departed spirit jellyfish, had happened in the space passage. Inside the space passage, death could happen at any time. No force could save all of their warriors. However, with a close look, they saw that the ferocious aura of the demon clan and monster clan improved after Leona had joined them. More and more warriors of Dark Shadow clan were killed. Their death rate was much faster than that of the four forces of Agate Star area. With this tendency, the Dark Shadow clan was going to be defeated soon. Its warriors were killed rapidly. The domineering core is the sharpest weapon in the battle between star areas. Experts who know how to train the troopers are the most precious resource of every big star area. All the forces compete to recruit them. Xian Fei was baffled for a while before she spoke to Shi Yang. Although she had just taken the commandership of the God Clan and Monster Clan, she's reached such heights. If she has time to train them for years, honestly, I can't imagine how strong they can be. Pondering for a while, Xian Fei said, perhaps she can have the force to battle against the legions of the God Clan. Leona had performed her powerful deeds, which had convinced Xian Fei. Eventually, she had to admit that the God Clan's core weren't absolutely invincible. Can you ask her to go to our fiery rainstar area to help us train our legions? Don't worry. All forces in our fiery rainstar area would do anything to protect her. Xian Fei asked Shi Yang earnestly. Frowning, Shi Yang said huskily. We should talk about it later. Through today's battle, Shi Yang realized how an outstanding leader could facilitate his force during battles between different forces. He knew that he wasn't this kind of talent. Since Leona was a genius in this field and the God Clan had carried out their invasion of Agate Star area, Shi Yang had made up his mind. After they were done here, he had to do something to maximize Leona's ability. Shi Yang believed that after this time, Monster Clan and Demon Clan would give their approval of Shi Yang and Leona. Then, Leona would bring an earth-shaking change to the core of the Monster Clan and Demon Clan. They would become invincible eventually. Leona alone had changed the general picture of this battle. The triumph now leaned towards the Agate Star area's forces. The defeat of the Dark Shadow clan was just a matter of time now. Chief Bello of Dark Shadow clan and his subordinate Kelda were sensitive enough to find this change. They were worried discreetly. Their fellows were being massacred. Each of their fellows was from the elite force of their clan. Dark Shadow clan was just one of many feudal vassals of the God clan. If they had a significant loss in this area, it would affect their clan in the future badly. Of course, they didn't want to sacrifice their clansmen here. Bello wanted to retreat. Barth and Gut were giving him a lot of trouble. He looked at Yushan as his murderous intentions arose. Yushan was the ringleader who had caused the defeat of the Dark Shadow clan. Without her, Blood Devil's group couldn't get out of his trap. They would have died and the departed spirit jellyfish would have been safe. While Bello's murderous intention was arising in his head, he purposely approached Yushan during the fight with Barth and Gut. Yushan's effort had been invested in refining the departed spirit jellyfish. At this moment, the jellyfish had shrunk to a much smaller size while the meat lumps in its body couldn't fume toxic smokes anymore. It just wanted to curl into a ball and find a chance to get rid of her refining. Bello's incipient extent flew out all of a sudden. His incipient extent was like a massive mirror that reflected the real world. Abruptly, the mirror cracked and the real world also had countless fine space slits simultaneously. Space rupture. Jar Duo screamed in fear. Bello wants to exterminate the space in this space passage. The moment the space passage collapses, he will use his incipient God Realm space power Upanishad to move all the members of the Dark Shadow clan away and escape from this place. However, we will be thrown into the chaotic space current. Listening to him, Shi Yang changed his face. Xian Fei, Fei Lan, and the others were also frightened. Bello was pushed into a dead corner. Once the space passage collapsed, it would also bury the entrance that they had spent an enormous amount of manpower and materials to clear. And no one knew when they could come and clear the entrance once again. He was compelled to a hopeless situation. Even if he had to pay a big price and receive punishment from the God Clan, he had to change this deadly situation. Do you know how to stop him? Shouted Shi Yang. Jar Duo frowned. His at second sky of incipient God realm with space power. He has cleared this space power. He has the favorable situation. How can we stop him? So we don't have a solution? Shi Yang paled. He knew how urgent and dangerous this situation was. If this space passage ruptured, Bello could bring his fellows and run away while they would have to bury their bodies here altogether. As Bello's incipient extent reflected the real world, when his incipient extent burst off, the real would change accordingly. First, the space would settle. Then, it would reveal countless space cracks where outer space streamers fluttered with a desolate aura. All the experts could recognize the deadly situation. However, at this moment, space slits were now covering Bello, so no one could approach him. Even Barth and Gut had to back off seeing Bello burst out crazily. Bello became the center of the rupture. He continually gathered his energy, which made his incipient extent crack further. Also, the real world had to bear the same consequence. Let Ka-Tuor do that. His chaos power Upanishad can twist even space, so that man can't smash this space. However, remember to do that at the moment that space is about to collapse. Otherwise, he will be killed instantly. At this moment, the ring spirit could also feel the danger. It sent Shi Yang a feeble soul message. Shi Yang was shaken. He called Ka-Tuor. You go there. Get to the area of those thick space slits. When this space is about to collapse, you must release all of your chaotic and twisting energy. Remember, you must do this with precise timing. You can stop him. Ka-Tuor was bewildered, pointing at himself with astonishment. I can do that. I say you can do it, so you can do it. Move, shouted Shi Yang. Ka-Tuor was startled. Roll away, Fei Lan shouted ear-piercingly. Ka-Tuor shook, flying towards the area where Bello was gathering the space slits. He came right under Bello's incipient extent, continually gliding between the space slits. He looked at Bello's incipient extent, which was changing continuously above his head. His face was tense and restless. He seemed to not be too confident. Chapter 1062. Really? I didn't do it intentionally. Chapter 1062. Really? I didn't do it intentionally. Can he do that? Jar Duo frowned. Apparently, he didn't highly evaluate Ka-Tuor highly. Aside from him, everybody else looked oddly at him besides Shi Yang and Fei Lan. They thought that leaving this to Ka-Tuor was a big mistake. What solution do you have then? Shi Yang snorted. When Jar Duo found that Bello wanted to rupture the space here, he instinctively left Potion and Tool Pavilion's formation to come here. During this tough journey, whenever they had fallen into danger, Shi Yang could always convert a threat to safety. Moreover, Shi Yang also cultivated space power Upanishad. That was why he came to discuss this with Shi Yang. He had never thought that Shi Yang would let Ka-Tuor handle it. He thought he had made a wrong decision. However, he didn't have any other option. That expert had cultivated space power Upanishad at second sky of incipient God realm. When he decided to rupture space, how terrible would it be? I don't have any solution, Jar Duo stammered. Then shut the F***ck up. Shi Yang wasn't polite. Evidently, he didn't put Jar Duo's objection in his eyes, his attitude fierce. Jar Duo didn't dare to snap back. Shi Yang had used his real competence to prove that if he got indignant, he could kill Jar Duo for sure. Especially today, Shi Yang had gained the approval of Monster Clan, Demon Clan, and Fighting League. With the 4 incipient God Realm experts standing behind him, he knew that he couldn't treat Shi Yang as he used to do, even if Jar Duo got haughtier. Thus, he could only keep silent. Xian Fei suddenly changed her face. No, it's not true. That man is going to break the space. He just wants to kill my master. Xian Fei didn't notice the others when they were talking to each other. Instead, she observed her teacher Yushan. At this moment, all the space slits were moving towards Yushan. Xian Fei was startled. She screamed ear-piercingly, "My master is using all her efforts to refine the departed spirit jellyfish. She can't resist it. Save my master, quick." Shi Yang's group was startled. Now they all understood Bello's plan. Bello had spent countless manpower to clear this space passage to connect Agate Star area and Old God Star area. Of course, he wouldn't want to destroy this laborious work. Thus, He had just fooled them by changing his incipient extent. He just wanted to get rid of Bath and Gut to attack Yushan. Although they knew his intentions now, Ka-Tuor didn't know it. If he still took action as he was told, should he receive a fatal consequence? Feilan changed her face. She wanted to rescue Ka-Tuor immediately. Don't. Shi Yang hurried to stop her. Don't go there. You can't help him. You could be killed too. All of them now observed Ka-Tuor. This pirate leader in Raging Flamestar area had his realm increase rapidly after he had gone with Shi Yang to this star area. At this moment, he was at peak of original god realm. Soon, he would reach the next realm. However, even if he was stronger, he couldn't withstand Bello at second sky of incipient god realm. All of them thought that Ka-Tuor would die. Shi Yang also had this thought. However, at the moment they felt that their hands were tied, Ka-Tuor touched his glabella. His twisted chaos power Upanishad was urged. Corpses of warriors from different clans, dregs in space passage, and even the small pieces of broken stars were attracted to him, hovering around his body. At the same time, remnants of energy also flew towards him. After a few seconds, Ka-Tuor was now like a whale taking in water. He had collected a big mess of junk from outer space. He was still mobilizing the energy of his power Upanishad, attracting more lifeless matters. They gathered and created a disordered magnetic field that twirled around him. That magnetic field could actually mess up the void in this area. Sizzle. 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 The space slits, which used to look like light beams in the horizon, now crossed each other in the same area. Space twisted chaotically all of a sudden. The space slits were now in turmoil. They flashed and radiated the dazzling halos like when a star was about to explode. The energy rippling from that area was so terrifying. Everybody could see clearly that Chief Bello of the Dark Shadow clan was aghast. His plan seemed to have been interfered. He wanted to restore the process, but it was too late. The space slits overlapped each other. They exploded blindingly. At this moment, no one could open the eyes to see what was going on. The fight between the incipient God Realm experts had to stop. The bloody battle between the Monster Clan, Demon Clan, Fighting League, Potion and Tool Pavilion and the Dark Shadow clan also paused. Instantaneously, several thousand warriors had to run away to dodge the area of the bursting intensive light. No one knows what was going to happen. Even Chief Bello of the Dark Shadow clan didn't know what could happen to them. As the intensive light pierced their eyes, Shi Yang couldn't see anything. However, his soul consciousness could sense the formidable energy fluctuations. Beams of space energy from the chaotic space currents were strong enough to kill even incipient God Realm expert. Inside the extreme light, he could feel the layers of debris around Ka-Tuor shatter. However, Ka-Tuor's life energy was still fluctuating. He knew that Ka-Tuor was still alive. Boom, 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 boom. The extremely explosive energy boomed grumblingly and unceasingly. The blinding light was still covering every place. Everybody tried to dodge this danger and moved far from that deadly area. Shi Yang could feel the magical change of space. He knew something terrible was happening. He also shouted and asked people to move far away from this area. After an unknown time, the beautiful but dazzling light slowly disappeared. People's visibility was restored. All then fixed their eyes on that area. No member of the Dark Shadow clan remained. All had disappeared. Yushan looked disheveled. She had a trickle of blood on the corner of her mouth. She was hiding together with Bath and Gute. The three of them were astounded, looking at the area where space had exploded. At this moment, space energy ripples started to settle and dissolve. Countless small pieces of broken stars, bones, remnants of energy, and dust from the vast universe accumulated in that area that blocked the space passage. The space passage between Agate Star area and Ancient God Star area was sealed one more time. At this moment, it was much tougher than the barrier between Agate Star area and Fiery Rain Star area. Moreover, it was formed unexpectedly and naturally. The departed spirit jellyfish disappeared. However, there was a bunch of grey gossamer bobbing in the void with the feeble aura of the departed spirit jellyfish. When Shi Yang saw those gossamer fibers from a distance, he felt the mark in his host soul's glabella get hotter as if it was boiling up. In the next moment, a powerful suction force arose. Shi Yang then saw the gossamers like wisps of smoke fly towards him and enter his glabella. Ah! Yushan couldn't help but scream hoarsely. She immediately grimaced. At this moment, there was neither a member of the Dark Shadow clan nor the departed spirit jellyfish lingering in this area. Hearing Yushan shout when there wasn't any danger now, all warriors turned to look at her. Bastard! Yushan shouted. Didn't you say that the soul remnants of the jellyfish would belong to me? You despicable kid! Xian Fei also looked at him hostilely and scolded, loathsome. Actually, Shi Yang couldn't control the mark on his forehead. He couldn't prevent the grey gossamers from entering his body. While Yushan and Xian Fei were scolding him, Shi Yang had finished taking in all the gossamers. His host soul felt full and happy as if it just had a wonderful feast after it was starving for a long time. Ka Tuor paled, hovering by the space barrier that was completely sealed. He observed it with an astonished face and muttered, "What happened?" No one could explain to him. "Where are the Dark Shadow clansmen?" Fu Wei of Potion and Tool Pavilion screamed. On the other side of the space barrier, Blood Devil answered calmly. At the moment the explosion happened, that chief of Dark Shadow clan who cultivates space power Upanishad had moved a small area of space here in just a blink. He has brought all the members of his clan to that side of the space barrier. Now, this space passage is blocked by that barrier. The Dark Shadow clan and we are just a barrier apart. We are at two different ends of this space passage. Ah, but why did they have to run away that fast? Ka Tuor asked. If they didn't run away, all the members of the Dark Shadow clan would have been buried here. Blood Devil glanced at Ka Tuor with an odd countenance. If they stayed in this space passage, they would have cut the connection with the God clan in ancient Godstar area. Then, with only their force, how could the Dark Shadow clan avoid the other mighty forces of Agatstar area and their hunt? Listening to him, they all understood the situation. It was true. If God clan didn't support them and the conspiracy of Dark Shadow clan had been exposed, how could they have stayed in Agatstar area for any longer? Only death awaited them. Bello wasn't dumb. The moment the others hadn't figured it out, he knew what to do. He had made a quick decision to use his supernatural powers to bring the Dark Shadow clansmen to the other side of the barrier. Thus, unless the warriors of Agatstar area proactively broke this barrier, they couldn't do anything harmful to the Dark Shadow clan. Of course, after this formidable commotion, the great conspiracy that God clan and Dark Shadow clan had plotted for thousands of years was now a stillborn child. If they still wanted to invade Agatstar area, they had to break this barrier, which was created naturally and yet strangely. It was going to require a lot of effort, manpower, and materials from the God clan. What did you do after all? Gut looked at Ka Tuor. Everybody else looked at Ka Tuor. Ka Tuor felt innocent. He shook his head continually. I don't know. I just acted as I was told by my senior. Everybody shifted their look to Shi Yang. Shi Yang also wore an innocent look and forced a smile. Don't look at me. I don't know what had happened. Despicable bastard. Yushan rolled her beautiful eyes and looked at him indignantly. You took the payment that belonged to me. You betrayed us. Didn't you plan that right at the beginning? Shi Yang felt so reluctant. He stooped and unfolded his hand begrudgingly. Really? I didn't plan anything. It was not on purpose. I'm so sorry. It's not what I wanted. We should go. Yushan took a deep breath and threw Shi Yang a cold glare. She took Xian Fei and left with rage. They disappeared from the space passage. They would hold this grudge against Shi Yang until they died. As the four incipient God Realm experts including Blood Devil, Bath, Gut, and Feng Yang were here together with thousands of warriors of the Monster Clan, Demon Clan, Fighting League, and Potion and Tool Pavilion, Yushan knew she couldn't trouble Shi Yang. Thus, she had to leave with a grudge. Senior, you're so cunning. Ka Tuor appraised. He also thought that Shi Yang had just pretended to be innocent. Bath, Gut, And Feng Yang also wore awkward looks as if they thought that Shi Yang had plotted against Yushan and Xian Fei and taken the spoils he had promised them. I didn't do it intentionally. Why do you look at me like that? Shi Yang thought he couldn't clean himself even if he jumped into the Yellow River. Chapter 1063, Burn Your Hand, Feel the Heat. Chapter 1063, Burn Your Hand, Feel the Heat. She said you took her spoils. What was that? Blood Devil was surprised. Those gossamers of the departed spirit jellyfish you had absorbed. Listening to Blood Devil, Shi Yang frowned. He needed to check his soul altar. He didn't know how magical the soul gossamers of the departed spirit jellyfish were. The ring spirit didn't explain it to him clearly. Yushan didn't say whether the benefit she wanted was the soul gossamers from the departed spirit jellyfish or not. Checking his soul altar, he found black threads gathering in his host soul. His host soul now had an incredible feeling. He could feel a part of his soul had been sent to the gossamers and blended with them. Shi Yang slightly changed his visage and tried to contact the ring spirit to make his situation clear. The ring spirit didn't answer him. It seemed to appear only when he was in a fatal danger or something very crucial that made the ring spirit feel tense. Usually, it would stay dormant and not release any beam of soul energy. Cursing under his breath, Shi Yang put his mind in his host soul and observed. Shortly after, the fine, black gossamers had gathered and condensed into a black bead that hovered in his host soul. This bead was as big as his fingertip, but it had a subtle soul energy fluctuation. Shi Yang didn't know its functions, anyway. His thoughts flickered and the bead in his soul emerged in his palm. Shi Yang had a feeling that this bead was somehow interlinked with his soul. The bead that was as black as ink fell on his palm. At first glance, it looked dull and ordinary. It wasn't crystal clear or beautiful. He pinched the bead and wiggled his wrist in front of Blood Devil. The gossamers of the departed spirit jellyfish have condensed into this thing. Do you know it? Blood Devil, Bath, and Gut were the three incipient God Realm experts. They all stepped forward to observe the bead. After a while, they all shook their heads. Feng Yang, Fu Wei, Xia Xinyang, and Migi were the ones who had a good relationship with Shi Yang. They all came to see. They observed the bead but none of them could guess the profile or know what that bead could do. Maybe it's a soul class material to refine divine weapons. Fu Wei contemplated for a while and then said, this bead has subtle energy fluctuations. Some rare soul class original incipient grade materials have this feature. However, I'm just guessing. I'm not sure if it's true. Listening to Fu Wei, they all nodded as they thought that it was logical. Shi Yang grinned. He didn't say anything. His thoughts flickered and the bead disappeared. It reappeared in the host soul. Shi Yang could hide this bead in his soul and it seemed to have some magical connection with his soul. It's over now. Although something unexpected happened, the result was satisfactory. Blood Devil pondered for a while and then pitched his voice. We've confirmed that the Dark Shadow Clan has some plan with the God Clan to invade Agate Star area. Today, this space passage has been sealed for the second time. Within a short period, our Agate Star area will be safe. It's time to deal with the betrayers. Fu Wei and Jia Duo darkened their faces. Everybody else looked at the two of them. Our potion and tool pavilion will treat the Great Elder with what he deserves. We will give you an answer, hissed Jia Duo. I know that Potion and Tool Pavilion's Elder Conference is around the corner, right? Feng Yang smiled. I'm going with you guys. I'm willing to be a witness. We will prove the Dark Shadow Clan's conspiracy. If we go now, I think we can be there on time. Of course, we have to speed up. We'll come back immediately, Fu Wei said resolutely. The Potion and Tool Pavilion's Elder Conference would determine the future of Potion and Tool Pavilion. Even the Pavilion Master's selection would depend on this conference. It was a critical event of Potion and Tool Pavilion. As Jia Duo and Fu Wei were elders of Potion and Tool Pavilion and had been confined for a long time in this space passage, they were always worried as if they had a flame burn their hearts. As the situation was settled today, they didn't need to press it down anymore. They wanted to leave immediately. Great Elders Walu of Potion and Tool Pavilion was one of the ringleaders of Agate Star Area's invasion this time. This man had had an agreement with the God Clan to support the Dark Shadow Clan to invade Agate Star Area. If this man stood still, people would never ease their minds. Thus, seeing Jia Duo and Fu Wei hurry to leave, nobody held them back. They wished that those two could handle Walu as soon as possible. As Feng Yang and Bettina had a close relationship, she could represent the Fighting League to clarify the relationship between the Dark Shadow Clan and God Clan. She could help Jia Duo and Fu Wei deal with the Great Elder. She spoke to Xia Xinyang and left with Jia Duo and Fu Wei. This time, they didn't choose the route where the shooting star was wreaking havoc to return. Without the threat of the Dark Shadow Clan, they used the regular path to come back. Little girl, I, by the name of the chief of the Evil Dragon Tribe, invite you to be the trainer for our troops. Just name whatever condition you want. Suddenly, Barth asked solemnly and looked straight at Leona. The others were bewildered. However, they reacted timely and their eyes brightened. Come to our brutal dragon tribe. What Barth can offer you, I can too. GUT approached immediately and offered honestly. Our Fighting League also invites you to join us. Xia Xinyang smiled, gliding forward. She said gently, Jejie, you are so powerful. I must follow you to learn a lot of good tactics. Please don't hesitate. Blood Devil had a strange look. He just grinned and didn't join this commotion. Instead, he looked at Xianyang. After this battle, everybody had seen Leona's value. She could increase the Monster Clan and Demon Clan's fighting competence several times in just a blink of an eye. If she could train their core for a while, how strong would they become? The leaders who knew how to direct guild combat were the rarest resources in this world. As Barth and GUT knew the value of this kind of warrior, they didn't hesitate to offer big benefits. Everybody then looked at Leona. The woman with a ferocious, ugly face had become the focus. She was the most welcomed warrior who everybody wanted to have her in their force. She frowned and didn't say a word. Instead, she looked at Xianyang. Everybody was bewildered. Gradually, they found something as they looked at what she was looking. Barth, GUT, and Xia Xinyang smiled and approached Xianyang. Kid, when I heard you were in trouble in Shadow Ghostly Prison, I hurried to get my ass here. See, I care about you a lot. You and McGee are good friends too. Come to our Evil Dragon Tribe, okay? Barth invited. Ghost Hunter has joined our Brutal Dragon Tribe. Come to us. We will do our best to help Ghost Hunter get the leading position. He can be the chief of our Brutal Dragon Tribe in the future. What do you think? Smiled GUT. I have so many things I want to learn from that sister. Xia Xinyang smiled and threw him a charming, sexy look. Xianyang burst out laughing, raising his hands. Stop it. Everybody looked at him. God Clan won't drop its plan. Xianyang took a deep breath. I don't think this barrier can hold the God Clan forever. I think the death of the departed spirit jellyfish and the defeat of the Dark Shadow Clan will stir up the raging flame of God Clan. Agate Star area will be safe for a while. However, we must be cautious. We must prepare for the next wave of attack. We'll have time to cultivate more. We should try our best to enhance our fighting competence. He looked at Leona. You guys all know how valuable a powerful commander is. I suggest the Brutal Dragon Tribe, Evil Dragon Tribe, and the Demon Clan send a troop of yours to make a combined core. Leona will train this core. I think that this core will become the sharp weapon of Agate Star area to deal with God Clan. Barth and GUT were surprised. They pondered. Blood Devil guffawed. I support this idea. All of them could see that Leona followed Xianyang. At the same time, Xianyang and Blood Devil had a close relationship. If Brutal Dragon Tribe and Evil Dragon Tribe sent their elite forces to Leona's management, they knew that their lethality would increase massively. However, since Leona was the commander, if she leaned towards the Demon Clan, would the Monster Clan receive disadvantages? Barth and GUT were the chiefs of their tribes. They needed to consider a lot of things. They didn't agree immediately and still pondered. Brutal Dragon Tribe, Evil Dragon Tribe, you guys should send one captain each. Leona will help you train them. Only when we fight the God Clan will she command the 3 troops of the elite corps. If nothing happens, your captains will train your old forces. You can be independent. Any doubts? Added Shi Yang with a smile. Barth and Gut laughed and screamed, good. It's excellent. Because it meant Leona would train their troops for free. Since the captain would be from their tribes, they didn't need to worry. Thus, they had no objection. What about me? Xia Xinyang smiled and winked at Shi Yang. You. Shi Yang was surprised. You are a qualified commander yourself. If you need more knowledge of guild combat or tactics, you just need to ask her. Xia Xinyang immediately looked at Leona. Leona gave her a curt nod. Xia Xinyang smiled naturally and immediately approached Leona to ask something, her face longing. Come back, said Blood Devil. Everybody returned to their battleships. Shi Yang signaled Leona. Leona spoke to Xia Xinyang for a while and then excused herself. She left Xia Xinyang and walked towards Shi Yang. Inside the secret chamber of a battleship. Shi Yang sat neatly while Leona, Fei Lan, Ka Tuor, and Benny sat around him with longing faces. Ka Tuor, you did a good job, Shi Yang said while secretly urging the energy in his acupuncture points. He beamed a bright smile. I don't know what had happened. Ka Tuor scratched his head. I don't know why the explosion happened and why the space was sealed. I have no clue. Well, even though we don't know for now, we will figure it out later. I think your understanding of Chaos Power Upanishad has progressed after that, right? Asked Fei Lan. Ka Tuor nodded and replied earnestly, yeah, I got a glimpse of something magical, indeed. Good. Then, after taking in the energy, you should invest in it furthermore. I think you can break into ethereal god realm. Shi Yang smiled brightly. I collected a lot of energy this time. You guys will have a big harvest too. It's true that battles will nurture people like us the most. They exchanged looks and laughed contentedly. They opened their souls and waited for the gift from Shi Yang. Chapter 1064. I'm not resigned to that. Chapter 1064. I'm not resigned to that. The other end of the space passage behind the barrier. Chief Bello and leader Kelda of the Dark Shadow Clan had grim faces. They looked bafflingly at the closed barrier. They wanted to cry but they couldn't squeeze a tear. The space passage that the Dark Shadow Clan had spent more than 1,000 years and countless efforts to clear was closed for the second time. And it was much tougher and more natural than the previous one. This made Bello and Kelda want to kill themselves. Chief. The departed spirit jellyfish is gone, the space passage is sealed, my brother perish. How can we explain this to them? Kelda's face was bitter and cold. He ground his teeth as if he wanted to tear someone apart. Bello's clothes were now like rags. He had 2 trickles of blood on the corners of his mouth. He said bitterly, I don't know how to explain this to them, either. Sigh, Kelda sighed sadly. He said in a low-pitched voice, I'm not resigned to it. I'm not resigned to it, either. Bello nodded. We should return first. We will report exactly what had happened. God Clan will have a new plan. We've been dependent on the God Clan for so many years. If we don't have merit, we have done a lot of laborious works for them. Today, our loss is significant. Perhaps we won't receive too much punishment. I hope so, Kelda said begrudgingly. Several hundred soldiers of the Dark Shadow Clan had died in that battle. They lost around 10 battleships too. If Bello hadn't taken them to the other side of the barrier, they would have all died in Agate Star area. The battleships started to move and leave the barrier. They gathered and departed from the space passage. The passage that connected Agate Star area and Ancient God Star area had the other end lead to the most desolate area in the edge of the star area. The peripheral regions of Ancient God Star area had many cold and barren stars without life energy fluctuations or earth and heaven energy. The Dark Shadow Clan's battleships often anchored on some massive asteroids here. After Bello and Kelda had left the space passage, they gathered on a big asteroid to explain the situation to their clansmen. Afterward, Bello left alone and rode a war chariot towards a life star near there. Half a month later, Bello landed on that life star. The god clansmen welcomed him. Later on, Bello headed to the peak of a majesty mountain with many grand shrines. He saw many statues around the shrines. Each of the statues was one of the experts of the god clan. Although they were just statues, their auras still existed immensely and impressively. Bello could feel a pressure in this area. He stopped and watched the statues with respect and fear, waiting for something. A good-looking godman was walking towards him. He had some ethereal god realm experts surrounding him. His eyes were bloodshot and his aura was cold and sinister like ice in hell. Sir Sloane, Bello slightly bowed. The good-looking middle-aged godman was named Sloane Ascot. He was the younger brother of the current head of the Ascot family, Fick Ascot. He had second sky of incipient god realm cultivation base with the cold power Upanishad. He had absorbed billions of wisps of icy yin aura in ice-cold purgatory in ancient Godstar area. He was one of the characters who had the glory to be recorded in the Book of God of the God Clan. The Book of God of the God Clan was a strange original incipient grade treasure. It recorded the past and current experts of the God Clan. However, it only recorded true heroes who had performed extraordinary merits for the clan. The Book of God was the canon of glory of the God Clan. Each expert of the clan aimed at writing his or her name into the book as the life goal. Sloane was an expert who had the glory of writing his name in the Book of God. When we're alone, don't call me sir. Just call me Dage. Sloane waved his hand, his face exhausted. Your Dark Shadow clan had gained acceptance from many families that year. Because of me, you decided to let the Dark Shadow clan be dependent on the Ascot family. You and I are brothers. No matter what happens, our bond won't change. Bello's eyes got red as he stooped with emotions. Dage, I heard you failed in Agate Star area. What happened? You and I had planned for 1,000 years. Which chain is wrong? Sloane asked tenderly. Bello sighed. I don't know why I lost that battle. I don't know how our plan was revealed. We had to fight against the Monster Clan, Demon Clan, Fighting League and Potion and Tool Pavilion in that space passage. Bello carefully described the situation he knew and didn't omit any small detail. Sloane calmly listened to him. He didn't intervene once. When Bello talked about Yushan appearing out of nowhere and beginning to refine the departed spirit jellyfish, he rose his hand to interrupt. He frowned. How did she look like? Bello touched his forehead, using his soul to draw Yushan precisely from her face to her gate. She's not from Agate Star area. She comes from Fiery Rain Star area. She's called Yushan. She's at second sky of incipient god realm and she has the flame of the origin. Sloane's eyes suddenly became so strange. Contemplating for a while, he said dispiritedly, my young son Spot is dead. Bello changed his face and couldn't help but shout, who did that? Dage, who did that? Bello and Sloane had a good friendship. He often visited Sloane's family and he liked Spot a lot. He treated him as his nephew. Hearing that Spot was killed, Bello was enraged. He'd fallen in the fountainhead of power Upanishad. His soul vanished directly. He's really dead now. Sloane's voice was calm but the cold aura like ice from hell that radiated from his body was so chilling. Before he died, his soul had recorded 2 persons. One was Xian Fei, Yushan's disciple. The other was an unknown young male. But if Yushan went to Agate Star area all of a sudden, I guess that young man was also there. Come take a look to see if you recognize him. Sloane spewed out a cold air current, which then condensed into Xian Fei's and Shi Yang's images as if someone had carved their sculptures from ice. I know them. When we battled in the space passage, they stood together. Bello screamed at first glance. Good. Sloane took a deep breath. Xian Fei's and Shi Yang's figures shattered instantly. Yushan came to Agate Star area because of the departed spirit jellyfish. Perhaps she had taken the soul gossamer of the jellyfish. I will remember this. The operation in Agate Star area won't end here. I will think about how to break that sealed space barrier one more time. Dage. Bello hesitated for a while before reminding him that barrier closed naturally. It's much tougher than the previous one. You know that I've cultivated space power Upanishad and I've reached second sky of incipient God realm, but I have to spend dozens of years to make a narrow slit. Sloane frowned, flinging his hand. I have my calculations. Don't worry. You go back and prepare. Clearing the space barrier doesn't always require space power. If we have energy that's sharp enough, we can clean it. You wait for my good news. Bello looked at him and nodded quietly. He knew the reason why Sloane was so resolute. It had to be because of Spot's murderer in Agate Star area. He knew how much Sloane had favored his young son Spot. As Spot was murdered in the fountainhead of power Upanishad, he would never let go of the murderer. No matter where he was, he wouldn't dodge Sloane's raging flame. After they had checked the battleship's conditions, Monster Clan, Demon Clan, and Fighting League departed to Shadow Ghostly Prison. Shi Yang had asked some experts of the Demon Clan to get to the area of the chaotic shooting stars to pick up Suo Shi. This time, they didn't return through the previous route. They chose a much safer way. Inside a secret chamber of a massive battleship of the Monster Clan's fleet. Fei Lan and Benny woke up. They looked at Leona and Ka Tuor first and then at Shi Yang. Time flew hurriedly. Shi Yang's aura calmed down when he opened his eyes and smiled. How are you? Fei Lan asked carefully. I didn't break through. Shi Yang's face was calm and relaxed. My energy accumulation is enough. However, my realm still requires a little more. With the energy I got, I used them to condense immortal demon blood and the essence Qi ancient tree in my body brimmed. I can't take in more unless I advance one more step. Senior, since you're cultivating mixed powers Upanishads, you must make all of your powers Upanishad advance equally at each time after you've reached ethereal god realm. Just like Ka Tuor, Benny now called Shi Yang Senior. He said seriously, because of that reason, not many people want to cultivate more than one powers Upanishads at the same time. If they did, they would cultivate the similar powers Upanishads that would blend with each other. Shi Yang frowned and said, You mean, if I want to break through my realm, I have to advance all of my powers Upanishad at the same time? I can't break through using only one power Upanishad. When you were at original God realm, you just needed to break through one power Upanishad to pull the others all together, Benny explained. But from ethereal God realm, you can't do that. Every time you break through the new realm, you have to advance all the powers Upanishad you've cultivated. Of course, people who cultivate more powers Upanishads could be stronger than the others at the same realm. However, it takes a lot of time to reach the new realm. I understand, Shi Yang nodded. After Shi Yang reached ethereal God realm, his understanding of space power Upanishad was deeper. However, he didn't gain much in star, death and life powers Upanishad. Thus, even though his energy had fully accumulated, he couldn't get to second sky of ethereal God realm. As Benny came from a high-level star area and his family had a strong and profound foundation, he knew genuine information. Leona and Ka Tuor cultivate only one powers Upanishad. Their energy is pure, so they can progress faster than you can. Benny looked at the other two sitting next to him. Yeah, they can break through soon. I can tell. Shi Yang nodded and asked, How about you two? I'm still far away from third sky of ethereal God realm. My realm and energy haven't reached the upper limit yet. Fei Lan shook her head. I've accumulated enough energy. I just need a flash of recognition in my realm. Benny smiled happily. Yeah, reaching third sky of ethereal God realm requires an enormous amount of energy. The energy I've given you is definitely not enough for you to get a chance. We shouldn't hurry. Just take it slowly. It's fast enough. I'm not hurried. Yeah, it is better that way. We should advance our realm. I will think about how to get more energy. Understood. Several months later, the battleships of Monster Clan, Demon Clan, and Fighting League returned to the center of Shadow Ghostly Prison. Under the dimlit sea of stars, Bath, Gut, and Blood Devil stood arrogantly atop their battleships. Precursors, you aren't going to be guests of the Fighting League, are you? Xia Xin Yang sighed with regret. I don't know Feng Han. I'm not going to go there. Blood Devil shook his head. We have many things to solve. We will visit later when it's more convenient. You help us to send him our regards. Okay then, Xia Xinyang said reluctantly. She looked at Shi Yang walking out of the cabin. Her beautiful eyes lingered on him. Cough. Cough. Shi Yang was embarrassed. He smiled shyly. I'm going to Fighting League for a while to solve my personal business. My friends will return with you guys to Devil Bloodstar. Oh yeah, I'm going to create a space teleport formation. Perhaps I can connect to Devil Bloodstar. The child formation is there. I just need to fabricate the mother formation of the mother and child sky linking formation, which I used to have. You can stay, but Leona must follow us home. Bath and Gut screamed in unison. No problem, Shi Yang agreed immediately. Chapter 1065, Divine Light. Chapter 1065, Divine Light. Fei Lan, Leona, Ka Tuor, and Zhuosha left together with Blood Devil's battleships. They went to Devil Bloodstar to cultivate ascetically. As the Dark Shadow clan was expelled, Shadow Ghostly Prison didn't have any chaotic commotions. Thus, it wasn't necessary to ask Fei Lan's group to stay here. At this moment, what they lacked wasn't energy but the understanding of their realms. Shi Yang considered letting them go to Devil Bloodstar to cultivate, as understanding their realm's mysteries was much urgent. Only he stayed in the battleship of Windstorm War Department. The Flying Bird battleships flew agilely, detaching from the battleships of the Monster Clan and Demon Clan. They headed to the center of Shadow Ghostly Prison at a fast speed. On a corner of the battleship, Xia Xinyang wore a tight azure dress. She looked as beautiful as a blossoming cherry flower. The pink crystal anklets on her bare foot clang happily like a stream murmuring. Her beautiful eyes had a faint, mesmerizing halo as she smiled and spoke gently. That sister has a brilliant tactical mind. Why does she listen to you? She lay lazily by the edge of the deck. Her delicate waist was slender like a water snake, which promoted the curves of her rear end. Her posture was so sexy, which made people picture a lot of things. The warriors of the Windstorm War Department were all sent away from this area. 1 or 2 guards were standing far from her, but they didn't dare to face her or peep. Shi Yang chuckled. He turned around to check the area. Seeing no one notice, his big hand smacked her ample buttocks. He felt so wonderful, his eyes getting hotter. She and I are from the same origin. She listens to me because I can give her benefits that no one can. Xia Xinyang glared at him angrily. She moved her body slightly away from his evil hand. She whispered, "How many days will you spend with me?" "Yeah," Shi Yang nodded gently, watching the dark area ahead of them. "It has been more than 100 years, but the time we've been together isn't a whole full year. Sigh, everything changes. I never imagined that we could meet again in a strange galaxy like this. When I left the quiet cloudland that year, I have never thought of this future." "That year?" Xia Xinyang smiled and parted her lips. "That year, I didn't put you little robber in my eye. At that time, you were at just disaster realm. I came with you to the Endless Sea because of the Yang family's face. Unfortunately, Uncle Jiao had gone too early." Shi Yang sighed sadly, his eyes reddening. Xia Xinyang's soft body shivered. She sighed weakly. "Without Jiao Hanyi, we couldn't have come to the Endless Sea alive. He had treated you so well we couldn't complain a tiny thing. What regret we lost such a hero." Demon King Bo Zun had used a white bone clone of his to possess Jiao Hanyi. His soul vanished while his body was taken. He had sacrificed to give them a chance to live. Both of them were grateful and respected Jiao Hanyi a lot. Today, they were filled with compassion thinking of him. Oh, right, Shi Yang suddenly remembered something. His thoughts changed and the ring on his finger glowed. A cauldron emerged, flying towards Xia Xinyang. "This is the original universe returning cauldron of the Pure Land. That year, you were the key personnel of the Pure Land. Do you want to take a look at it?" Shi Yang had kept the cauldron for a long time. He had taken this cauldron in the utmost 8 Purgatory City while fighting the leader of the Pure Land. This cauldron seemed to have magic. He kept it because he wanted to give it back to Xia Xinyang one day. That year, the Pure Land had concealed Xia Xinyang. She didn't know that the Pure Land had joined hands with other forces to hunt Shi Yang's group. Many members of the Xia family were killed too. However, it has been many years. Under the wearing power of time, many things had become the past. After Xia Xinyang had recovered the memories of many previous lives, she didn't feel much belonged to her relatives. And the Xia family had made a wrong decision. She didn't want to keep it in mind. Looking at the original universe returning cauldron, she chuckled and thought about the old stories. She was calm, taking the treasures of the Pure Land. She squinted and sensed for a while. There's no aura. I guess they were all dead. Shi Yang had never tried to study this cauldron because he wanted to hand it to Xia Xinyang. Thus, he didn't know what it could do. Hearing her, he was curious. He asked, "What can that cauldron do?" "Contact the experts of the Pure Land who had got into outer space." Xia Xinyang didn't want to conceal anything from him. During several thousand years, the Pure Land also had some King God Realm experts. All of them had left Grace Mainland. But no one knew where they'd gone. This cauldron had a secret method to contact those experts. It had a secret treasure which was like the Sound Stone. I've just checked it. I found no aura. Perhaps they were all dead. She grabbed the original universe returning cauldron and spoke faintly. This is an ordinary treasure. It can't help me with anything. Anyway, I will keep it as a memento. She put it into her fantasy sky ring. Shi Yang suddenly understood. Grace Mainland had 3 big epochs including the immemorial epoch, the antiquity era, and the ancient time. This ancient continent used to have abundant energy. After 3 prosperous eras, it had given birth to many immemorial creatures and intimidating races. Eventually, it declined. The moment the Pure Land burst out, the energy of this continent was about to run out. Although the Pure Land had its peak of glory, the highest realm that their warriors could reach was just King God Realm. In Grace Mainland, the King God Realm was the peak of the cultivation. However, when they entered the vast, shoreless sea of stars, no one looked up to the King God Realm warriors in the high-level star area. Warriors from the low-level star areas didn't have good foundations. When they showed up in high-level star area, they were predestined with fatal endings. As Xia Xinyang couldn't sense any aura of the Pure Land's precursors, it was enough to prove that they were all dead. However, in Shi Yang's point of view, it wasn't something big. While he was struggling in raging flame star area, he had experienced this adversity. The misfortune that Xia Xinyang had undergone when she had entered Shadow Ghostly Prison was much more than his. Only people who had experienced it could understand how low-realm warriors survived in a strange star area. The situation in Shadow Ghostly Prison is steadier now. The Dark Shadow Clan and the God Clan can't invade us for the time being. Do you still want to stay in the fighting league? Shi Yang became serious. Come with me. We're going to Devil Bloodstar. You want to study strategies and tactics in war, don't you? I can let Leona discuss with you. That place is also far from the battlefield. Even if the God Clan and Dark Shadow Clan appears all of a sudden, we still have time to prepare. Xia Xinyang quieted down. Her bold brows slammed together as if she was pondering. Shi Yang watched her in silence, his face yearning. He didn't want to miss this chance. He wanted to keep her by his side. The Shadow Ghostly Prison and the Devil Bloodstar were far from each other. It would take several years to travel through this long distance. He didn't want to stay away from her and he could only meet her once after several years. Io Hegemon Feng Han, after a while, Xia Xinyang sighed weakly. He treats me like his blood younger sister. At my most difficult times, he had cleared all the opposing ideas to bring me to a higher position. He has used all of his materials and resources to nurture me. He helped me have my realm and status that I have today. If I leave now, I will feel like I owe him for the rest of my life. Give me more time. Hegemon Feng Han of the Fighting League had always considered her his most beloved family member. He had never doubted her. Feng Han was even selfish enough to take all the excellent resources of the Fighting League for her. That was how she had broken through to second sky of ethereal god realm in 100 years. Xia Xinyang wasn't worried that her realm would be stuck. She just needed a torrential energy supply and she would break into the new realm. For her, Feng Han had spent countless materials, pellets and divine crystals from Potion and Tool Pavilion and other forces to create this miracle. So we have to part again. Shi Yang smiled bitterly. You can stay with me in Shadow Ghostly Prison. Xia Xinyang muttered to him, her eyes filled with hope. I can't stay idle. Shi Yang shook his head. I don't like to stay in one place for a long time. I like going to where the battles are. Shadow Ghostly Prison used to meet my requirement. However, the Dark Shadow Clan left Shadow Ghostly Prison today and the God Clan can't come here quickly. This area can't offer me what I want. Then I can make Shadow Ghostly Prison chaotic for you. Xia Xinyang pondered for a while before talking coldly. What? As the Dark Shadow Clan had left, the mineral stars and precious lands they had occupied are now unowned. Of course, our fighting league can't resist such good food. Without the Dark Shadow Clan, the small forces in Shadow Ghostly Prison can't resist the fighting league. We will sweep them out, Xia Xinyang said ambitiously. Shi Yang was surprised. Beautiful flying bird battleships of the Windstorm War Department floated above a mineral star. The war chariots hissed and scattered from the battleships. They rummaged through this mineral star immediately. This mineral star had an abundant amount of blue crystal sand, which was a precious and rare material that was hiding deep underground. The Dark Shadow Clan used to control this big mine. Of course, the Dark Shadow Clan wouldn't spend their efforts on mining the blue crystal sand. They just brought the mine slaves here. From time to time, the Dark Shadow Clan would visit this area to take the blue crystal sand they had exploited. If someone dared to take their products, they would send their battleships to finish them. Today, all the Dark Shadow Clansmen had retreated from Shadow Ghostly Prison. This mineral star became unowned. Xia Xinyang passed by this place to announce to the mine slaves that this mine would belong to the Fighting League from now on. The war chariots hissed and roared, flying into the entrances leading to the core of the star. Shi Yang stood by Xia Xinyang atop the battleship and looked at thousands of holes in the surface of the star, which looked so dark and gloomy. Suddenly, he said, warriors take natural resources to strengthen themselves. All kinds of secret treasures, pellets, and even energy are from the galaxy. Our existences are also a burden to earth and heaven. Oh, since when have you become so emotional? Xia Xinyang smiled and said casually, what God gives us should belong to us. We collect the materials. It's like people who need to kill animals if they want to eat meat. Shi Yang frowned. He sighed inwardly, but he didn't want to say anything else. He knew that he also didn't have the right to talk more. His power Upanishad was the wickedest among the wickedest power Upanishads. If the warriors took natural resources to cultivate and break through, Shi Yang had used the others' deaths to make himself stronger. As he could reach his current realm within a short time, what had he used to do that? He understood it better than anyone else. Swish! A war chariot moved like a swift eagle, rushing out of the mine. A warrior of the Windstorm War Department looked pale as he shouted, Madam, someone is taking the mineral star. He looked at Xia Xinyang, his face indignant. They stated that this mineral star belongs to them. Do we need to kill them? Oh, besides the Dark Shadow Clan in Shadow Ghostly Prison, there's still a force that dares resist our fighting league? Xia Xinyang was surprised. She laughed and asked, which force is it? It's called Divine Light or something. It's not a native force in Shadow Ghostly Prison. I'm not familiar with the outer world. I don't know this force, reported the man. Divine Light? Xia Xinyang slightly changed her visage, her eyes twinkling strangely. Shi Yang was surprised. He thought he had heard of this force somewhere. He frowned and started thinking. Chapter 1066, A Divine Crystal Mineral Lode. Chapter 1066, A Divine Crystal Mineral Lode. Shi Yang was startled for a while. His eyes brightened up. Divine Light. It was the force that has admitted Zi Yarrow, right? When they were in Broken Starfield in the Far West region, an old man picked Zi Yarrow and told them that he was from Divine Light. He had invited Zi Yarrow to join them on behalf of his master. It has been dozens of years, but it felt like a blink of an eye. Today, Shi Yang heard the name of this force one more time. He was moved. He asked, "The divine light isn't a force in shadow ghostly prison, right?" "No, it's not." Xia Xinyang frowned, her face dark and solemn. "Divine light is an extremely mighty force." Shi Yang arched his brows. In Agate Star area, forces gather their allies despite races. The power of divine light is ranked first. It's not weaker than our fighting league. I think it's a level stronger, Xia Xinyang said objectively. In Agate Star area, there were so many forces. Some forces gathered by race. For example, the Monster Clan, the Demon Clan, the Wood Clan, and the Ghostmark Clan were the important races. Usually, the forces that gathered their warriors from the same clan were extremely strong. At the same time, some other forces would enroll members from different races. However, they were still as mighty as the other clans. The Fighting League of Shadow Ghostly Prison was one of the forces like that. As long as you were strong, no matter what race you are from, you could always join the force. Warriors who contributed a lot to Fighting League earned rewards or promotions to higher positions. The benefits they received were unimaginable. Divine Light was a similar force to the Fighting League. It was formed by warriors from many races. And its power was extraordinarily mighty. The Master of the Divine Light has a good relationship with the Second Elder of Potion and Tool Pavilion and the Chief of the Fire Clan. She's a woman who knows how to connect influential forces. Xia Xinyang looked serious. The area of the Divine Light's authority isn't in Shadow Ghostly Prison. The nearest region is by the edge and it's adjacent to the Ghostmark Clan. They often have disputes. They have never operated in Shadow Ghostly Prison. I don't know what happens this time. While she was explaining to Shi Yang, the Fighting League warrior was so worried. He couldn't help but shout, "Madam, the Divine Light warriors are all down there. Should we take action now?" Shi Yang turned around to look at her. "This is Shadow Ghostly Prison. It's our territory." Xia Xinyang's face was cold and grim. She ordered resolutely, "Tell them that I'm going there personally. Ask them to leave. Or else, we will kill them." "Yes." The man laughed evilly and then returned to the mine. His aura disappeared shortly after. Shadow Ghostly Prison has many small forces. In the past, we fought against the Dark Shadow Clan and the small forces also fight all the time. We don't have a moment living peacefully. I thought that we could have some quiet moment after the Dark Shadow Clan was gone. I never thought that Divine Light would come. TSK, they won't leave us alone here." Xia Xinyang was begrudging. She looked tired. She had been in Shadow Ghostly Prison for 100 years and she had been so busy during this time. If she weren't cultivating with the pellets to increase her realm, she would be busy with her troops fighting for the welfare of the Fighting League. It was so hard to meet Shi Yang again. She wanted to take a decent rest. And now the damn Divine Light emerged, which made her so agitated. Xia Xinyang was famous in Shadow Ghostly Prison, indeed. After the warriors of her Fighting League got underground for around 1 hour, the warriors of the Divine Light came out one by one. They looked at her with dark faces. However, they didn't say anything before leaving in their war chariots. Divine Light had only one battleship, which carried less than 100 warriors. The strongest of that group had only first sky of ethereal god realm. The battleship of Divine Light looked like a straight, silver arrow. Beams of beautiful light twirled around it like a soft ribbon, which made the ship marvelously outstanding. Shi Yang looked at the battleship leaving. He released his soul consciousness and used his familiarity of life magnetic field to check the Divine Light's battleship. After a while, he smiled and shook his head. Well, it couldn't be that much of a coincidence. Xia Xinyang looked at him skeptically. Why do you have to sense the warriors of the Divine Light? The highest realm warrior has just first sky of ethereal god realm. We can tell that at first glance. Why do you have to use your soul to sense their life magnetic fields? I'm just curious. Shi Yang was naturally calm. Xia Xinyang didn't ask him furthermore. She ordered some subordinates to enter the mine. After a while, they returned and shook their heads reluctantly. The divine light took all the blue crystal sand. Okay. Leave a group of 10 here. After I return to the headquarter, I will send more mine slaves. Advising them, Xia Xinyang rode the battleship and left. After dozens of days, the flying bird battleships of the Windstorm War Department patrolled neither slow nor fast around many mineral stars, which used to belong to Dark Shadow Clan. However, what had surprised them was that half of the mineral stars of the Dark Shadow Clan now had warriors of the divine light guarding it. It seemed like those warriors had hurried to go to Shadow Ghostly Prison. There weren't many of them. Most of the time, there was around 10 of them on a mineral star and their realms were really high. When Xia Xinyang ordered them to leave, the Divine Light's warriors were smart enough not to resist her. They just left quietly. Along their way, the Fighting League had shooed away the Divine Light's warriors 10 times. Gradually, Xia Xinyang lost her patience. She also felt something was wrong. She recognized that those Divine Light warriors were here just to claim the territory of the Dark Shadow Clan. It was like an announcement of their involvement in this area. Apparently, the Divine Light warriors knew that Dark Shadow Clan had left Shadow Ghostly Prison. That was why they weren't afraid of anything to take those mines. The Master of Divine Light and the second Elder of the Potion and Tool Pavilion had a good relationship. Thus, Fu Wei, Jia Duo, and Feng Yang must have arrived at Potion and Tool Pavilion. That was how the elders of the pavilion had received this information. Today, the Windstorm War Department landed on a level 6 life star. Before the Dark Shadow Clan left, this was their resident base. The planet still had a lot of buildings built by the Dark Shadow Clan. However, they couldn't see anyone from the Dark Shadow Clan today. Anyway, no one knew where the Dark Shadow Clan's headquarters were situated. The Dark Shadow Clansmen moved through space slits like wandering ghosts. Sometimes, they would anchor in this life star. This life star was a familiar stop to the Dark Shadow Clan because it had a divine crystal load. Dark Shadow Clan had considered it the most important base. The Fighting League had been thirsty for this life star for years. To claim this place, they had fought the Dark Shadow Clan many times. Most of the time, they managed to take it, but the Dark Shadow Clan would ambush them not long afterward. They often had to bear big losses. Looking at the luxuriant big trees and foliage in the immensely vast forest, Xia Xinyang smiled brightly and spoke happily. Our hegemon has laid his eyes on this planet for a long time. I heard that the divine crystal load in this planet could store hundreds of millions of divine crystals. Xianyang was astounded. Hundreds of millions of divine crystals? Yeah, enough for warriors of the Fighting League to cultivate for 100 years. Her face was filled with satisfaction. For this life star, Fighting League and Dark Shadow Clan had had many battles that had killed so many warriors. As the Dark Shadow Clan had gone, we finally got this life star. Many warriors of the Fighting League stood on the flying bird battleships and observed. They were all excited. Hundreds of millions of divine crystals were a fortune that made everybody crave for it. Divine crystals were the basis of the warriors' daily cultivation. Warriors from races that needed earth and heaven energy to cultivate couldn't live without divine crystals. At the same time, divine crystals were the currency in many regions. A mineral load with hundreds of millions of divine crystals was a huge fortune that every force would want. No wonder why the Dark Shadow Clan and the Fighting League had fought for years for it. This life star had many majestic mountains that jutted into the clouds. Some imposing mountain ranges were situated in an area of several hundred miles. They were homes of spiritual animals and herbs. This level 6 life star had abundant energy with normal gravity, so it was a good place to cultivate. Warriors of the Fighting League took in refreshing air with earth and heaven energy. They were smiling happily. Xianyang's line of sight shot further. He suddenly frowned, speaking in a low-pitched voice, "Someone's here." Xia Xinyang looked in the direction he was watching. 10 miles away on a grand 10,000-meter mountain sat a young man wearing grey clothes. He looked a little yellow and he sat cross-legged. That young man had indifferent eyes. His aura was calm and placid like the great mountain underneath. He gave people a pressure of something majestic and deep. This young man didn't have a good-looking appearance. His face was yellowed. He looked like he was in his 30s. No one knew why he was sitting idly atop that mountain. The mountain range he's sitting on is the fountainhead of the divine crystal lode. Xia Xinyang hissed and furrowed her brows. I wonder if it's a coincidence or if he is doing it on purpose. Something's wrong here. He cultivates earth power Upanishad at third sky of ethereal god realm. His life magnetic field is abundant. This man is really dangerous. Squinting, Shi Yang used his soul to sense. He got the precise news shortly after. His face changed quietly. That young man had third sky of ethereal god realm, but his blood chi and life energy fluctuation could be compared to Kokka of the Dark Shadow clan who Shi Yang used to confront. This supported the fact that the young man could fight a warrior at first sky of incipient god realm. He had the competence to leap one level and fight. This finding stiffened Shi Yang's face. He took a deep breath. Maybe he came here because of the divine crystal lode. Xia Xinyang nodded and contemplated for a while before waving her hand to order her subordinate. Go there and check it. The Windstorm War Department's battleships floated and flew swiftly to the peak of the Grand Mountain. They hovered around the mountain top. The warriors of the Fighting League watched the young man in silence. That young man was still as calm and quiet as a majestic mountain. He looked at the warriors before his eyes fixed on Xia Xinyang. Xia Xinyang of Fighting League? Yes, it's me. Who are you? This life star belongs to the Fighting League from now on. Please leave. Don't throw yourself into troubles. Xia Xinyang shouted at the young man. The young man frowned. He sat still like he was a mountain, speaking in a low-pitched voice. This place used to belong to the Dark Shadow clan. After the Dark Shadow clan left, it became unowned. The Dark Shadow clan is gone. It belongs to our Fighting League now, said Xia Xinyang seriously. The young man had a placid complexion like water. No. It belongs to our divine light from now on. The young man stood up all of a sudden, his voice so cold. This is not only for this planet. All the mineral stars that we've claimed before you expelled us now belong to the divine light. Who are you? Xia Xinyang was surprised. Sana. The young man didn't look at her but looked somewhere further back. He suddenly cried ear-piercingly. His whistle was like the cry of the ghost. It was low and cold, twirling while moving away. Immediately, battleships floated up from the dark forest from a faraway distance. They slowly approached and closely surrounded the 10 battleships of the Windstorm War Department. Chapter 1067, Holding Hostage. Chapter 1067, Holding Hostage. Almost 100 battleships emerged. They looked like they were made of gold. The entire body of the battleships was sparking sharply as if they were real lances. This fleet was called Blood Lance, the ruthless lance of divine light. Captain Sana was the soul of this Blood Lance, the expert of the new, infamous generation of Agate Star area. The battleships of the Blood Lance fleet scattered, forming a net that surrounded all the battleships of the Windstorm War Department. The warriors of divine light came from many different races. They all had the brutal aura of warriors who had been fighting year-round. Right now, they all gazed at the warriors of the Windstorm War Department. Sana. Xia Xinyang changed her face. She kept silent for a while and then said, I've heard of you. You're the adopted son of the Divine Light's master. You're the master of the Bloodlance fleet, a famous young expert of Agate Star area and a deadly weapon of divine light. The young man had an indifferent face. He spoke faintly. The Dark Shadow clan's territory is unowned now. If the Fighting League can rob them, we can too. In Shadow Ghostly Prison, we used power to talk. We will do that the same way. Dark Shadow clan and our Fighting League had fought for years. We've spent a lot of effort to deal with that alien clan. We finally expelled them. Do you think you're despicable enough to interfere with the business at this moment? Xia Xinyang gritted her teeth. It's not only the Fighting League who had expelled the Dark Shadow clan. Don't say it as if you've done all the merits. Sana frowned and didn't try to be polite. When the Fighting League first arrived in Shadow Ghostly Prison, you came with empty hands. Everything you got was from your robberies. What our divine light was doing is no different from your circumstance. Don't try to reason with us. It's not interesting. It's cliché. The Bloodlance fleet had around 1,000 warriors while the Windstorm War Department had only 300. They were outnumbered. As they were besieged here, they would obviously lose once the battle started. The leader of the opponent was Sana, the young, famous expert of Agatstar area. His reputation had far surpassed Du Lin's. And the Bloodlance fleet of the Divine Light was also a wide-known powerful force. It was much more dangerous than the Windstorm War Department. The power that their enemy had at this moment had overwhelmed them. Xia Xinyang didn't know if they could do more than just hiding and waiting for the right chance. Xia Xinyang wasn't foolish. Seeing what they had presented, she knew she couldn't get anything good this time. Well, you're a genius then. We will talk about it later. Go. She pondered for a few seconds and then hissed. Warriors of the Windstorm War Department were worried. They knew that they couldn't stand this battle. They had prepared to leave as they were ordered. Boom. 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 The battleships of Bloodlance shot out blinding lights, weaving with each other like shooting stars and blocking the others. Warriors of the Divine Light had a cold complexion while energy surged on their bodies. They were ready to release their attacks. Xia Xinyang changed her visage. Sana, what do you want? She could see that they didn't want to let them go. This chaotic situation was over her estimation. She was restlessly anxious. Well, we want you to stay here and take a rest. Sana still had an indifferent countenance. I heard that the hegemon of Fighting League has always favored you. We want to talk to him through you. Perhaps we don't need any battle to solve the business in the mineral stars that the Dark Shadow clan had left. Hearing him, all the warriors of the Windstorm War Department reddened as their raging flames burst out. They understood that Sana wanted to capture Xia Xinyang to threaten hegemon Feng Yang and force him to acknowledge their possession of the mineral stars left by Dark Shadow clan. Everybody grimaced. Xia Xinyang's soft body shivered. She understood and sobbed while screaming, Sana, you've planned this before, right? Yeah, I've been waiting for you here for a long time. Sana's voice was stiff. He didn't conceal but admitted it simply. Seeing him not have any fear to make the situation clear, Xia Xinyang quieted down. She slowly pulled herself together and looked around as if she was considering something. I'm kind enough to remind you. Besides me, we have a precursor at First Sky of incipient God realm here. Sana frowned and spoke as if he could read her mind. Don't try to enrage me. Don't exert yourself to fight. Although the Windstorm War Department is strong, I believe my Bloodlance is enough to destroy you all. Hearing they had an incipient God realm expert here, Xia Xinyang finally discolored. She was dispirited. Warriors of the Fighting League felt their hearts sinking. They exchanged looks, but all remained silent. He's here because of Feng Yang. We didn't expect that precursor Feng Yang wouldn't come. Anyway, we don't need to move then, Sana explained in a cold voice. Could we return to our battleships to rest? Xia Xinyang asked with dimmed eyes and tired voice. Yes, you can. Sana's tone was still indifferent. As long as you don't provoke us, we won't restrain you too much. You're smart. You know what to do. The warriors of the Windstorm War Department returned to their battleships and disappeared into the cabins. Sana coldly observed them. After all of the warriors of Fighting League had gone into the cabins of their battleships, he made a gesture. Warriors of his Bloodlance then drove the battleships away and maintained a distance of several thousand meters from the Windstorm War Department. They could defend and they didn't want to cause any unexpected dispute. Sana sat down on the peak of the mountain again. However, this time, he took out a soundstone. It seemed like he was talking to somebody from Divine Light. That Sana is powerful. Inside the Flying Bird battleships, Xia Xinyang furrowed her bold brows and spoke, this man is a deadly weapon of Divine Light. He's the adopted son of Divine Light's master. I heard he has been cultivating for years in the fiery desert, south of Agatstar area. The fiery desert is burning hot. Many members of the Fire Clan go there to cultivate. Sana has stayed in Fiery Desert for a long time and he has made friends with many important warriors of Fire Clan. That was why Divine Light and Fire Clan had a close relationship. Sana is an extremely heartless warrior. He has destroyed a lot of forces to protect the benefits of his Divine Light. Some ethereal god realm warriors of Windstorm War Department winced. They didn't have any solution. They abducted Our Lady to threaten the Hegemon. A good plan then. Hegemon would, perhaps listen to them, said a warrior while looking at Xia Xinyang. Everybody knew that Feng Han had treated Xia Xinyang with unconditional and unreasonable love. To increase Xia Xinyang's realm, Feng Han hadn't regretted anything. In the beginning, they thought Feng Han had a crazy love for her. Later on, they found out it wasn't the true story. Feng Han's close protection and caring to Xia Xinyang was just the indulgence a brother gives to his little sister. Thus, they knew that Divine Light had made a good move in using Xia Xinyang to threaten Feng Han. Feng Han would absolutely do what they wanted. Do they actually have an incipient God Realm expert hiding there? Xia Xinyang sighed and couldn't help but ask Shi Yang. The warriors of Fighting League also looked at him. On the way to the space passage of the Dark Shadow Clan, Shi Yang had used his powers to prove that he always had a subtle solution in any adversity to rescue people. Just like Monster Clan and Demon Clan, the warriors of the Windstorm War Department who had followed Xia Xinyang had trusted him wholeheartedly. They all looked and waited for Shi Yang to give them hope with yearning eyes. Yeah, there's an incipient God Realm expert. Shi Yang nodded and beamed a forced smile. He stays in the mountain range underneath Sana. His life energy is really strong. Well, he's the most persuasive thing here. Listening to him, everybody had a heavy face. Shi Yang, you cultivate space power Upanishad. Can you? Xia Xinyang recalled something. She hurried to ask. Let me try. Shi Yang chuckled and closed his eyes. He urged his energy and tried to find a space node. Suddenly, an icy cold aura shot out from the mountain underneath Sana. That aura shot up into the sky and chased after Shi Yang's soul consciousness and froze it within 1 second. A gleam of ice appeared right at Shi Yang's glabella. He shuddered and retrieved his soul consciousness. He hissed, "Someone interrupted me. That incipient God Realm expert underground is using his power to prevent us from sending information away. We can't use the sound stone to contact other people. He stopped my soul consciousness right after I sent it out. I couldn't find the space node to build a space door." Everybody sighed begrudgingly. That first sky of incipient God Realm expert had just stopped Shi Yang's soul consciousness. He didn't mean harm. Otherwise, Shi Yang couldn't retrieve his soul consciousness that easily. Just keep silent and watch for any change. Xia Xinyang pondered for a while. As she found no solution, she said that to calm her people down. Warriors of the Fighting League sighed. They regarded her with a lot of bitter emotions. They knew that the Divine Light had trapped them. They had planned to use powerful warriors to capture Xia Xinyang and use her to blackmail Feng Han. They would make Feng Han give all the mineral loads that the Dark Shadow Clan left behind. Although they knew the others' purposes, they didn't have a solution to resist. This feeling irritated them. Shi Yang and Xia Xinyang returned to the deck of the battleships to observe their surroundings discreetly. They wanted to see if they could use the characteristics of this area to escape. Sana of Divine Light always sat above that mineral load. He didn't move and just used the sound stone to talk to someone. He seemed to be discussing something with Fighting League. Today, a battleship of the Divine Light appeared in the sky of this planet. This battleship was made of some strange but marvelous purple crystal. It was crystal clear and filled with light. It looked like a massive chunk of purple crystal descending from the sky. Many warriors of Divine Light saw that battleship. They looked shocked at first. Then, they became so excited and began to clamor. Sana had sat there for a long time. Seeing the purple battleship landing, his stiff face pulled a rare smile. He stood up immediately to welcome that purple crystal battleship. "Ah, some VIPs from Divine Light came. They do highly evaluate us." One of the Fighting League warriors sneered. "Do they really have to do that? How much force do they need to mobilize here to ensure this situation?" I think that person has a noble status. Even Sana has to go there to welcome. Oh holy **t, that poker-faced person can smile. Oh well. Who is that, eh? Oh, it's a woman. They discussed quietly. None of them found Yang standing next to them with a strange face. The light glowed in his eyes like two sparkling flames. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.